Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm always happy that when I can be back in a classroom type of setting, because a lot of my work is in coaching and different kinds of venue. And I'm happy also to share and to learn from you. That's always my agenda, to pick up whatever nuggets I can of your experiences and integrate them into things that I already know that I can pass on to help other people. That's number one priority for me. So in case you're wondering why I'm here. But I have several strategies that I will share with you today and the philosophy behind the strategies, because it doesn't, I can bring you tons and tons of strategies, but if we don't keep thinking about why we do what we do, why we know what works and who we are working with, then it's just more and more of the same. So we will talk about a rationale for why we have to do what we do. Our agenda is pretty ambitious today, which means that we probably won't get through it. Okay? But that's okay. Your handout is designed so that it's informational and supplemental in a sense. I don't always follow it exactly as it is. I also will tip you off now that I have slides that you won't have, but it does not detract from the integrity of your packet. It just further elaborates. Some of my friends and I exchange and share information because we're all on the same teaching kind of circuit. I have permission to use their work, but I don't have permission to distribute some of their work. So everybody knows about that. So that's one reason. And another reason, too, is because in thinking about today's work, I do exactly as you do. I think about it up to the second I'm standing there. So last night I added and changed a few things. And it, again, enhances, enriches, because I'm continuing to learn. And as I learn, then I pass it on and I include it. And I have to send the handout in days before I show up so it can be printed, which means that you're going to get the latest, the very latest that I have. So if we look at today's agenda, these are the top three things I hope we're going to be focusing on. I am very, very informal. So if I say something that strikes a chord with you one way or the other, ask, challenge, I'm up for it. It's okay. I don't say anything that I can't back up, usually. Okay. And I usually can tell you where it came from. So when we start to think about why we're sitting here, everybody's still engaged in the 21st century education and what does it mean and what does it look like? I'd like you to take a look at this and tell me what you think about it. We're going to talk about this a little bit.
There has never been a bigger force for change than technology. It changes absolutely everything about the way we live, the way we get around, the way we eat, even the way we talk to each other.
Now, in case you're wondering where I got this data comes from the U.S. Department of Labor. It's not made up. It's not for entertainment purposes. So, talk to your elbow partners for a few minutes and process. What did you see? What resonated with you? And then we'll talk about it in a minute. Okay. Talk to me, please. I'm not really good at wait time, so you need to know that. All right? I have a tendency to just go. Talk to me. What did you hear? What did you hear, think, see? Uh-huh. And that's interesting because critical thinking is one we have gotten away from because we don't know how to test it. Okay? Yes, you can teach critical thinking, unlike sometimes people think you can't teach common sense. Two different things. Okay? And that's where we get kind of a little confused. But yeah, you can teach people to think critically. Just like we now know we can teach people to lead. We used to think it was charismatic. You were born a leader or you weren't. But now we know we can teach it. Mm-hmm.
I think what stuck out to me was that as educators today, we're going to have to stay on top of our game. We're going to have to always be current, knowing what's out there so that we can, teach our students these things. I think about my mother and my uncles and aunts who, at this stage, if they don't know how to go on to Facebook or if they don't know how to tweet, it's okay. But I don't know that that is, our reality. When we become older, that can't be our reality if we're still in academia.
Well, I don't even know that it's okay for them anymore. I live in an adult community when I'm there. And it's fun for me because they're all seniors. And it's not like, a lot of people say, I don't want to live around these old people. They're getting old. You know what? These people are there to have the best times of their lives. Okay. And they're prepared to invest in that. And the most common comment I hear is, oh my God, if our kids could see us now, they'd be so embarrassed, And so they are all online and Facebooking because that's how they see their grandkids every day, 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. And their grandkids have toys and electronic gadgetry that they've gotten out of Walmart and Target that they can contact grandma and grandpa instantly, anywhere, anytime. That's a toy for them. Okay, and so it's the world we're in is just incredible that sometimes when we are focused on our content area and what we want to pour into those heads, we lose sight of some of that. Now, what's scary to me is as an investor, that whatever is being taught in the university level in 3 years is obsolete, okay? Why should people be paying for it if they can go up to Kmart and Walmart and buy right now can buy a pre-K through high school education, the software, and buy a $400 computer and homeschool and teach their kids? Why should they pay a bunch of somebody's $50,000, $60,000 a year to do what we can get for? Think about that. It's scary in a sense. And so we used to have a lot of philosophy of, I'm not paid to entertain them. But guess what? We aren't paid to bore them to death either. And if they aren't getting it, if they aren't engaged, if we aren't resonating with them, then we are poor investments, aren't we? We have to think about that. Yes.
But what's interesting is that your slideshow started off with the numbers from China and India. And those are both countries that propagate learning by rote. So they don't engage their students. They don't.
That's not entirely true.
Well, I was in China on a study abroad program where we visited several schools, and they were amazed at how we use technology and Twitter and things like that. Mm-hmm. When you look at Europe, where I'm originally from, which tends to outperform the United States also, it's a different way of approaching. It's more about increasing curiosity in the kids, and then the technology, because when I went to college, it's kind of long ago, my professors refused to use PowerPoint because they said you could just figure it out. And I'm actually starting to return to that, like very basic, listen to me talk. Just listen and think and process. Because sometimes, and this is what I hear from instructors who teach at universities in Holland, all the technology, the kids get so overwhelmed and so sucked into it, they lose sight of the content. Because our power is the content.
Well, see, that's what we've done. We always do the same thing. We always grab something and run too far in the other direction with it. So I'm not disagreeing with you entirely, but I am saying that they are changing. It's not all learning by rote anymore, and memorization, which I found to be true when I was in China and visiting schools. Recitation, memorizing, regurgitating back. That's moving away from that now. They are moving away from that. They're also moving away from that in the Middle East. I've been living in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and that's where I've been teaching and working and doing a lot of work in Istanbul. Countries all over are moving toward more critical thinking, exactly as you said, and getting away from the reliance on technology. Because see, the way we started using technology pretty much was parking kids in front of a TV, and we're done. We go away. And we don't teach them to think, which goes back to your comment originally. We don't always know how. But we are moving away from that. In fact, PowerPoint is so outdated, very seldom are we using it anymore. Everybody's moved to more interactive media like Prezi and some of the others. And it's how we use the technology that's available. And we misuse it often, which means it's not getting the full impact. But we've done that with a lot of philosophy in education. You remember outcome-based education and how it came up and died? I mean, what is wrong with knowing where you're going to end up before you begin? But it's the way we abuse stuff. We take a piece of it. Cooperative learning was another great example. So it's an incredible philosophy if we do it right. But whenever we mess it up, then we say it doesn't work and we throw it out. But we trash it because we don't do all the pieces of it. We just put people in groups and turn them loose. We don't teach them any group processing, any group communication, anything about leadership, anything about anything. We just put them in a group and then they got to go for it. And then we say cooperative learning doesn't work because we mess it up. And we do that in our, not intentionally, but messing because we're trying to be efficient and we got so much to cover. And it's such a short period of time to cover it that we're looking for shortcuts. And if we really backed up and looked at how we teach people to think and analyze and access, we don't have to worry about the covering. They'll cover it. If they're engaged, if they are into what we're trying, and we find ways to bait them and hook them and get them interested and get them feeling a sense of ownership, then they do the work for us. But we don't always have good strategies or be taught ourselves how to do that. Many of us continue to teach like we were taught. And there's nothing wrong with that. All I'm suggesting is that's not always the best way. Does that make sense? Nobody's messing up deliberately, but we aren't always as effective as we could be because we are so focused on what we've got to get done. This little guy here, he taught Stripe to whistle, okay? And his friend says, I don't hear him whistling. And what's his response? I taught it. He may not have caught it, but I taught it and I'm moving on. And that's where we are in too many of our classrooms. We had elementary and secondary. Then we went kindergarten, elementary, and secondary. And then we went pre-K, elementary, and secondary. And then we threw in the middle and put in another layer. And then we go now, it's pre-K to high school, pre-K to 12. But now we've gone all the way pre-K through university, through college. And that's how people talk about education now.
Yeah, teaching students, today's students, the way we're taught, I don't think that's a good way to go.
Well,
And I say that because, speaking for me personally, it was more professors on the board, here's information, write this down, there's an exam.
yes.
In today's generation is more hands-on. That's the,
And we know this.
so, if,
Mm-hmm.
I guess,
Yeah, teaching the way we taught is what he's saying. Isn't the most effective, but sometimes in our intention and our zeal and our desperation to get through the content, we fall back on what we know. I mean, I fall into our comfort zone. Why wouldn't we? That's what we know. So, yeah, we have the best of intentions. We start out the coursework one way, and then you find yourself 15 weeks later, you're in a different place, and you're like, God, I meant to do this. I wish I could have done that. I mean, that's how when I taught for Virginia Tech, George Mason University, I always tried to feel at the end that I had at least stuck to at least a chunk of my agenda, not to do to people what was done to me. And that's what we do in public schools. We teach them, we test them, and what we teach kids is, instead of thinking about and understanding and owning what the content, I want you to pass my tests. So we teach them to get away from us. Okay? Get in my class and get out. I want you out. And that's what the kids do. They want out. Nobody's concerned. When I hand out a course syllabus, when I teach at the grad level, I hand out a course syllabus. What do I get? They go through it. Somebody will ask me, how many pages do you want? Right? Okay? When are these reports due? I have yet to ever have anybody say, what is the most important thing we're going to learn in this course? Have you had that? I mean, how many people have ever asked you that? What is the most important thing I'm going to get out of this course? Isn't that what they should be asking? And what are they? They're pre-programmed when we get them. It doesn't matter what course, what level, they're pre-programmed. And who taught them that? We did.
Oh, they hate it most when I say there's no right answer.
Oh.
I teach philosophy and ethics and mass comm. There's no right answer. Oh my God.
Yes.
They pitch a fit and fall in it.
So what are we supposed to put on the final?
I know. I was a high school principal, changing the culture of AP courses. Do you know, look at me, I survived, but barely. Because it wasn't not just the teachers. The kids didn't want to think. Their parents didn't want them to have to think. They wanted them to make this great.
They want to see. I had a lab 2 days back. I gave them, like exercise to do.
Mm-hmm.
A group of people, I showed them out of 6 groups how to do this. Then I told them, please just think, use your brain. I want you to sit, 3 of you, for 3 minutes. Think, use your brain for 3 minutes, focus, and solve this issue. I tap on them like this. They went to the next group. Even the 10 seconds, they went to the second group asking them, how did you solve it? I told them, because you don't want to use your brain. God gave you this. You don't want to make use of it. This issue we discussed yesterday in the lecture, and today we are applying it. Yesterday, I told them how to do this, in theory. Today we are practicing how to do the calculation and go and prepare this solution, mixed chemicals. I told them, you don't want to use this. God
Well,
gave you
it
this.
goes back to what she says.
Think for 3 minutes.
Right.
Very sure, 100%.
There's a right answer and there's a wrong
Know the
answer.
answer. I'm very sure, because
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to make use of this.
But guess what?
Make use of what
We have to guide them. We have to change that culture of thinking. But it starts with us.
I do get what I use to I teach math.
Mm-hmm.
So as the syllabus bears, what I need, I don't want somebody else to do this. I don't need this. This is too abstract.
And you know something? 2-minute math teachers themselves don't understand that math isn't about the numbers. It's all about the thinking. And, get the right answer, put it on the test, and let's move on. And that's where we are too often in too many of our classes. So when if you don't remember anything else out of today, whatever strategies you are already using that you like, you have to make them better. There's not a whole lot of new stuff out here. It really isn't. And so even the things that I'm going to share with you today are probably many of them, are, if I'm lucky, are going to be variations of things you're already doing. But what is going to be most effective as a result of today is if you, as the primary leader in the classroom, are clearer and clearer and clearer on why what you're doing is a match for the people sitting in front of you, instead of just getting this content out. Why is this strategy I'm using a good match for this group of kids? Why is it going to help them access the content, the big picture longer? So what does this mean? This means that what's more important than actually acquiring more and more and more strategies is we get clearer and clearer on our planning and our objectives and our goals and what we're looking for as a result. What difference will you make having spent a semester in a person's life? What are they going to have forever because you were there? Or are you going to be another period and move on? And they'll remember you, maybe. And why will they remember you or anything that happened in your class? Why is it important? So it comes down to our planning. It comes down to choosing based on what we know about them, who they are, what they bring to the learning table, and make no mistake about it, everybody brings something to the learning table. It may not be what you want. It may not be what we prefer. They may not have all the skills when they show up that we prefer that they have, but they all bring something to the learning table. The challenge is to us to figure out what they brought to that learning table and how we use that to help them become more engaged in what we have to offer. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say that what I've found seems to work is for each class to find out, because my students, they don't ever ask what I need to learn, but they always ask, why do I need to take this class if I want to be, and y'all can fill in the blank, I'm sure. And so my first 3 weeks are spent convincing them that this is really important. But once I have them convinced that they need to know why research of mass communication is really important, even if you want to be the next Oprah Winfrey, they're mine. Like, I can make them do things they wouldn't do otherwise. So I think that even when you're teaching math or biology or classes they don't like, if you can convince them, look, you can do your own taxes, man. You can avoid spending $59 on TurboTax every year. You know, that's wax and whatever, you know, I mean, whatever appeals to our population. Right?
Relevancy.
Right. So, and I don't try to entertain my students, because I tell them, I'm not here to entertain you. You're not paying for that, but you need to know this why. And every class I repeat that, and that seems to work.
But that is entertaining. No. Think about what entertainment really means.
I don't do prezzies.
No, I'm not talking about the like flashy, glitzy stuff. I'm not talking about having people rolling in the aisles. Okay? I'm talking about capturing people's imaginations and their understandings, capturing it, holding it. Isn't that what entertainment really is about?
It's about like making them curious. And once they're curious, they want to know more.
Yeah, so we use the word entertainment, but we're talking the same thing. Okay? Reaching them where they live, making it relevant. I'll go here and then over here.
So using that constructivism methodology, finding out who these folk are, what they're bringing to the table, would you suggest then that the content that we are using, that plan that we had, may need to be altered so that that we can teach and have them learn this way, and then introduce them to this?
And they'll take it from there.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have found in the long run, and I've studied this for years and years and years at multiple levels, is that the more you develop skills in engaging their curiosity and entertaining them, if you will, I'm still using that word loosely, the more you do that, the more they do the more work, all the work. See, we have moved from being the keeper of all knowledge in classrooms as teachers to facilitators of the knowledge. And that means we guide, we help them shape, but they have to own it. They have to access it. Okay? Think about that. Yes, sir.
The question I have for you is, which one do you think is more beneficial? You have content area content that you're supposed to teach for the course. And you feel
You're not luring me into that trap.
40%. You need to cut that down so 40, if they master 40% of that content.
No, I'm not talking. I'm talking about mastering everything that you think is important. But our problem is we make everything important.
They're aligned with each other based on because at the end of the day, pertaining to lower level college, math courses, all the final exams are departmental. So everything is
Right.
comprised from there.
Right.
So by the end of the semester, you're having students, omit so and so because you only mastered 40% of that content.
Well, I don't know that you would do it that way. I don't think that's the most effective way. Because again, you're losing too much. It's exactly as you said. At the end of the semester, there's too many pieces that they don't have. Okay.
Right, but why move on to another area where they have not mastered the previous one?
Well, see again, all learning, some of it is sequential.
Right.
I mean, you can't do step B until you master step A.
Right.
But not all learning is sequential. I mean, I don't have to know about the War of 1812 before I learn about the reasons why the Vietnam War came. I mean, there are lots of, because see, you have to go back and look at why am I teaching what I'm teaching and what is in the most important part of what I'm teaching. Not just this rote step-by-step pieces of everyday minutia. What is the big picture? What are they supposed to walk out of my classroom with as a result of having been here? And we haven't always given enough thinking ourselves to what they're supposed to walk out of there with. We are caught up in, I've got to get this done, this done, this done, this done, this done, this done, this done. I'm suggesting that now that we're looking at maybe some downtime for some of you in the summer, as you have reflection time for yourself, maybe a little bit. Yeah, I know. Yeah, your 25th hour of the day, right? That we have got to get clearer ourselves and give some thought to what is the most important stuff that we teach. Because we make everything that falls out of our lips equally as important, and it's not. It isn't. And the kids don't know the difference if we haven't made it there.
Can I just clarify?
Uh-huh.
So I teach psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And in my intro course, let's say, I don't feel the need to teach biology to my psychology students. And so that's not something that's important to me. And I've learned to not give it my all, that effort for biology. That's, you should have learned where babies come from prior to coming here. Is that what you're talking about in terms of content, making important those things that you want to get across to those?
That's a part of it. That's exactly a part of it. What I'm suggesting is you're teaching psychology. When they leave your course, what is the most important thing that you believe every single one of them should know and can use in their lives when they leave you? And if whatever you do in your course doesn't lead to that, then why are you doing it?
And the reason why I asked for that clarification is because I'm just starting to, understand that I can't teach everything in the kitchen sink.
You can't. You can't.
These students, I feel every time I do that, at the end of the semester, in some way I have failed.
You're unsatisfied with your results. In addition to that, they don't all show up with the same level of background knowledge that you can begin to build on. And I have yet to walk in a room and see them sitting on the edge of their seats thirsting for knowledge. Okay? Uh-huh.
I was disagreeing with that. Because I'll give you a knowledge probe at the very first day to determine. It's kind of like what you're saying. I teach kinesiology, but you must know anatomy to be able to do that. So what I find is everybody trying to pass the anatomy test instead of actually learning.
Exactly.
So I can't get past teaching anatomy.
Well,
In essence.
what happens, and if you develop greater and greater skills, and it takes time, folks. We're not talking overnight processes here. And it takes starting small, one little place at a time. What starts to make a difference is when we develop our own clarity on what is it they really need to know, and develop our own skill sets on helping people want to know anatomy and be willing to, on their own, go back and review. Exactly. That's where you want them. Now, what does it take? It takes some sense of what this lady here mentioned earlier, a sense of relevancy, that they understand, oh God, I got to go back and review this. I know I had this in my notes somewhere. I heard this before, but I don't know where. I mean, how often you have to develop that thirst, that sense of, I need to know this. I'm engaged. That's where we keep using the word engagement, because we keep pushing that idea that when we get them wanting it, that's more than half the battle. They will go further along anything and further than anything you can teach them when they want it. But why would they want it if it's boring? Why would they want it if it's not relevant? Why would they want it if it has nothing to do with who I really am and what my life is like or will be like? Why? I mean, all of us been through that same boat. Yes.
Yes, I heard that your discussions and also in many situations, teachers are always facing some challenges and complaining students. And I just have a question. When we were students, I heard our teachers complain us, saying that the students not like them when they were students. And I mean, and then when we became teachers, we heard many of my friends also complain their students. And then I taught here for 15 years, and I have many students already graduated and then get a job teaching in high school here in this neighborhood. And when they came back and then talk to me, they also complain their students. So my question is, does this imply that the generation become weaker and weaker? I mean, academically, is it like because our teachers complain us, we complain our students complain their students? So does it mean that the generation, each generation become lower level or weaker, or?
I wouldn't say that. I suggest instead, go back to a comment I made earlier, and that is we tend to teach like we were taught, but we also tend to see like we've always seen. We also tend to see them through the same kind of lenses, because that's how we were seeing ourselves. So unless we break the cycle and the chains ourselves, we will pass that on. So when we send our students out, when you send your students out to teach science, teach math, teach English, what kind of teachers are they going to be? Are they going to be like you? Are they going to be like teachers who taught you? Or are they going to be teachers who are going to be different somehow? I don't know. You have to answer that. Only you can answer that. When do you break the chains? You know, we pass everything. We don't always like to acknowledge this, but everything is kind of generational, okay? And we know, for example, what our data tells us. For example, this is not necessarily a positive example, but this is an example. We know that if a girl gets pregnant and has a child at 15, what is that child likely to do? Drop out and do what? Have a child when that child gets 15. The cycle doesn't break. Who breaks the cycle? Who breaks the chains? When does that happen?
Somebody else will intervene, or they need a mentor.
Some intervention. Some intervention, but who's responsible? Who's going to do the intervention? I say the buck stops right here. It starts and stops right here. If we do to them what was done to us, they're going to do to others the same that was done to them. If we don't teach them critical thinking, how to analyze, how to not always look for the answer, to have it written for them, but to think about and figure out the answers. If we don't do that, That's why courses like what she's teaching, psychology course, these are critical courses. Art classes, music classes, these classes really, these skills teach people really different ways of looking at the world and thinking. And if we cut those, what happens when we have budget cuts? What are the first things to go? The arts and anything to do with thinking and philosophy. Hello? And we don't come, because we are wrapped up in our own content, we don't come to the aid of those folks. Think about that. They're advocating for themselves to people who don't really even understand their purpose. We really are all in this together. We really are. Pre-K through college. And we're wrapped up in our own worlds and don't branch out enough. But if we don't break our own chains, nobody can break the chains for the generation we are pulling behind us. So look at this picture here. These kids are involved. We don't always distinguish the difference between involvement and engagement. Look at the difference. These are engaged. Can you see the difference? Look at the involved kids. They're doing exactly as they're asked. Right? But look at those who are engaged, what they produce. Okay? Look at the difference between the engaged and the involved people. Part of where we begin when we think about engaging is to distinguish and separate whether or not we are promoting, encouraging involvement or just engagement. I'll give you an example of myself, because I've got plenty of bad examples with me, okay? As a principal, I learned the hard way the difference between involving parents in kids' education and engaging them in their kids' education. Think about that. We always say, and we mean it, that we want to involve our communities. We want our people involved in the process. Will you ever hear anybody say they want them engaged in it? Because we don't even know that there's a distinction sometimes. And when we use the terms interchangeably, they're not interchangeable. I have plenty of people involved. They'd come and they'd volunteer to put books on the shelves. You know, they come and they volunteer to go on field trips. They're involved. But did they get engaged? Because engagement is a deeper level of involvement, isn't it? When you stop and think about it. I learned, and it was a lady who told me, a stay-at-home mom. I was like, what's she got to share with me? I'm like, but she taught me. And I was lucky enough to be able to learn that. She says, well, we're just your extra hired help. We're just, yeah. If you want us really involved, she said, then we should be able to have some say in some of the decisions that are made around here. And I thought to myself, over my dead body. But, and then I have to think about that thing, because people say stuff to me and I have to go and pray on it, okay? And I have to think about it. And when it doesn't go away, it's because there's something there. If I can just blow it off and move on, you know, it's not ready for me yet. I'm not ready for it yet. But that thing stuck me, and I had to go back and rethink this thing. Because I was in the process of creating a middle school from an intermediate school and bringing in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, where it was just 7th and 8th before. And I had to think about, am I just doing an add-on, or am I really creating something new here where everything is integrated? And I've figured out that parent involvement, I was doing the involved thing, the surface stuff, and I hadn't gotten to an engagement level. So I want you to think about an example where you have actually gotten people engaged, or are you still doing the involvement thing? So talk to your elbow partners right now, for a minute, and I want somebody in here to give me a good example from your perspective of how you either got people engaged or you really stuck in involvement and haven't thought about it a lot. Okay? All right? Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to do is I am going to ask for only one response because I know you had a lot of talking, but I got to move through today, okay? So she has on one of my favorite colors, which is green, and I'm going to ask her to choose who you want to hear from in here. Y'all see the power jump in her eyes? It's like,
That's engagement.
she thought I was going to ask her to speak, and her heart sunk. But when I said she gets to choose, she was like, okay. Who do you want to hear from? What table? Okay. The one up front? Okay. The one example.
One way that I engage my students is anatomy is a huge part of what we have to know. So you have to know the muscles. So I use a dating game, the speed dating game.
Oh, cool.
So, for example, if my name is Rectus femoris, then you have to know.
That sounds nasty, doesn't it?
That's your client.
I know.
You would have to know that name, and if I would want to know where you worked, you know, what you did.
That is so cool.
That's so cool.
And so with 2 minutes, we'll move. So I would say my name is Rectus femoris. I come from an anterior superior iliac spine that I go to, and so students begin to hear this word.
And it's relevant to them.
And then they're having fun, and you hear this engagement, this noise, and then they would have to get up and find out who their date was, who was common to them.
Yeah.
Opposite. You know, so that means you had to have a hamstring, the bicep femoris, so forth and so on. So
That's
one
an
way.
excellent example. Hey, there you are. Hey, I ain't mad at him. The truth is the truth, and that is an excellent example. But what did he do? Let's break it down. What did he do? Yeah, that's all right. What did he do? He started from where they were, didn't he? He picked an activity that they already understood, that they could then translate it and make it relevant to his content area. Isn't that what we're talking about? Now, that's more than a strategy, isn't it? Why? You pick somebody that has to tell us why.
Well, I tell you, I'll go to the last table.
Okay. Why is that more than just a strategy? Let's think out loud.
It is.
This group over here. Y'all can't hide. Everybody see you. Look, you know, people look in the ceiling and on the floor, pretend you. We see you. Why is that just more than just a strategy? You want some help? Pick somebody you want to help you. Somebody from another table. He's on your team. Who? Pick somebody in here that you want to help you out with their thinking. Okay, over here. Why is it more than just a strategy? What are you thinking?
Like teachers do strategies, and
Uh-huh.
students have to participate in this. So the student is the provider of the information.
The students are providers of the information. The teacher is not just the sage on the stage. Oh, yeah. It's also more than just a strategy because it took a lot of just deeper planning and thinking about his students and what's relevant to them, what would matter to them, what would they find interesting.
So it's more dynamic than just a strategy.
Exactly, because
Add more components
you-
than just a strategy.
we can pull strategies out of a hat. In fact, we often do because we got to get through the day. But is it the best strategy for what it is you need to teach, they need to learn? You got to make sure it's a match. Okay? Because, and another thing, it resonated with this class But the next time, the next semester, he may have a whole different class personality, and that won't fly. Or you teach somewhere else in another community, and that won't fly. Yes.
How do you measure if that's the best strategy?
Good question. One of the things we're going to talk about today is pre-assessment. That's something we don't do very well as educators or very often as a whole group. Some of us do it and don't have a choice because of what we teach.
You know how you also know something works? Like I follow my students on Twitter. If they talk about your class after class on Twitter.
But no,
They do, and they evaluate you.
So, me being a math person, there's many different ways to get to a solution. So, if this strategy works, this strategy works, this strategy works, how do you measure if this is the best strategy for that particular?
Right.
A way that we do it through research is look at strategies, look at ideas of pre-assessment. And you pre-assess not the day of a class. You're already there. They're there. Pre-assessment takes some planning on your part. Again, backing up and thinking about what it is that they already know that they're going to bring to this concept. So you pre-assess on a unit of study a week to 2 weeks before you're going to teach it. And then you use that information from your pre-assessment in your planning. Does that make sense? So if I do a pre-assessment, maybe something as simple as a poll, okay, and find out who knows about this. If I'm going to teach the eating habits of a fruit fly, okay, then I want to find out, or a fruit bat. If I want to find out what you all know about fruit bats, I have to do something to find out who in here knows. And I guarantee you I'll find somebody who has no clue. Is that something you hit with a ball? Okay, I'll find somebody who, I think that's one of them things that fly around after dark. And maybe one of you actually has one you keep under your bed. I don't know. But I have to know that in order, if I'm going to do the best job of teaching about fruit bats. You pre-assess. That's where we begin. Does that make sense? Uh-huh.
Should we keep in mind in the pre-assessment what our students are looking to do afterwards in terms of career-wise? Because I can see where...
If that's relevant to what you're teaching, yes.
Because I can see where different math strategies, depending on whether you're going into finance, science, or as a math teacher, would be different. Or
Could be.
So is that something we should ask?
Yes. Well, one of the things that was always useful to me when I'm teaching a course is I want to know, I taught for 5 years in Virginia Tech's, George Mason's career switching program at a graduate course of folks in math and science careers who were switching over to teaching. And I had to begin my sessions with finding out who's in front of me. And my last class I taught, I think I had like 38 students who were supposedly math and science backgrounds, or undergrad degrees or graduate degrees, and they were coming into education. So I had a couple who were emergency room physician in there. I had a shock trauma nurse in there. I had a marine biologist in there. I had several dot-commers who had made a fortune and now want to give back, but they had science degrees or math degrees. I've turned out, they weren't just, even though they were math and science background, they were from all kinds of walks of life. These were my students. So now I've got a picture of who's in front of me. I got ways to begin to think about how to make things relevant to them. Does that make sense? Uh-huh.
So going back to what you previously, we were talking about before we started talking about engagement, when you decide what the students ought to learn by the end of the semester, shouldn't you scope out the students first and then decide that based on some students might not have the proper background?
I still got to teach this content.
Right, I mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
So, for example, let me just a general example.
Mhm.
College algebra, you have to teach from chapter 1 and chapter 4, 5, and so forth. Depending on the scope of the student, some might not have the proper background, so you might just have to get through 1 to 3. And
No, then this is where I go with that.
Okay.
I go with what we call scaffolding. You know, if you got to wash the windows on a 16-story building, you can't reach them without scaffolding. So we do scaffolding in educational planning and philosophy. And that's another whole set of strategies to look at how do we scaffold our instruction and how do we tier, the different layers. Because I've got like the fruit bat example. If I got somebody in here who has no clue, most of the people may know what it is, but don't know a lot about it. And then somebody who knows everything because they own one, I got to teach them all the same content, right? So now I've got to go back and scaffold or tier my instruction so that all of them still get the content that they are in here to get. Now, the one who already owns one or the two, that person has got to get enriched. So I got to look at my planning on how I'm going to enrich this person and not just have them teach other people and do my job for me. You see? And then I've got to look at the people who don't have a clue what it is and set up some strategies that will bring them up to speed very quickly.
And what if that percentage is higher than the people that actually...
Then I've got to, it doesn't matter what the percentage is. It really doesn't matter. What matters is how I'm going to reach them and bring them up to speed. Okay? Because they may be the majority. Then if that's the case, then I've got 2 groups of students instead of 3.
But now isn't that going to delay
Depends on
the goal that you previously set for yourself that they ought to learn for that particular...
No, it's just the same as it's again, looking at how am I going to do this? And there are multiple ways. And nobody, understand this, nobody knows it all. Okay? And so you reach out. There's some we're going to talk about today that will reach multiple levels and bring them up to speed, some of these strategies. I'm just laying the groundwork for that, okay? There are lots and lots of ideas, okay, of ways that we do that. Uh-huh.
And you can't assume that you're going to get everybody where they need to be that 50 minutes that you're in the class with those students.
That's exactly right. And that's where engagement comes in, because if you've gotten me inspired and motivated, then I'm going to do more outside of your class than just that time I'm sitting there.
Right. That's going to be important.
That's where we come. We keep circling back to that word engagement, don't we?
Right.
Yes. Uh-huh.
We attended a conference like months ago in Augusta, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the speaker, he focused on undergraduate research.
Mm-hmm.
He gave us some type of data. He said the United States now is not leading in STEM type of science.
That's true.
It shifted from the United States to some Asian countries and Europe. And he said the only thing that we can fill that gap by making students engaged and critical thinkers. They said all students, they should do an undergraduate research before they graduate. I don't know whether this, he said this according to Physics and Astronomy Society of the United States. They said that every student before graduating or leaving the school, they have to do some undergraduate research, some hands-on.
I don't disagree with that because I don't know.
Yeah.
It sounds good to me, and it makes sense to me. So I'd be inclined to continue to investigate that further.
Yeah, because I remember he brought a lot of data. I have them here. He said the United States, for instance, is 24th out of 65 countries in terms of...
Well, I can tell you, I don't know that data, but I do know this. I know that a lot of what we see here within our own borders is singing our own praises, and it's not justified. I can tell you this, that my experiences having been working abroad quite a bit and even living abroad is that we are resting on our laurels too much. That what we used to think of as third world countries and underdeveloped countries are whipping the pants off us in certain areas, and we are still riding around thinking that we are U.S. citizens, U.S. residents, and that's the biggest and most important thing in the world. Now, I love my country, don't get me wrong. I still prefer, this is the best country in the world, in my opinion. But I also see flaws in our own reasoning and thinking about who we are, and that we are no longer just U.S. citizens, we are global citizens. And we haven't accepted that or even understood that on a large scale yet. So how can we teach that to our youth if we don't even get it? We are global citizens, folks. The world has shrunk already while we weren't looking. And in terms of some things that we are excellent at, there are other things we are no longer the best at. And we don't even know it. And that's dangerous for our own national security. So I'm not disputing that at all. In fact, it sounds about right with other things that align with other things I've been learning. When we start thinking about what we need to do in that classroom, in our classroom by classroom by classroom, it starts with us. But again, nothing big. I'm not trying to leave you with, we got to make radical changes. That's not the message here. The message here is we've got to do better than what we have been doing. And each of us has to figure out what that means and how we're going to do that and get better and better and better. I'm not talking about doing more. More is not better. Better is better. Everybody get that? You can't do more. There's no more. You don't have time to do more. But you can do better. Okay? Let's take a look at this. We're talking about what are some steps to engaging our learners. This is a place to start, sir. You asked about where we begin. This is one place you can start. I'm going to introduce several ideas of places to start, but this may resonate with you. We're looking at what is a hook as you design and plan. Remember I said everything begins with the planning. Do you have good hooks? Do you have a way to focus, to ratchet it up and tighten it for those who need it? Take a look at this teacher. Tell me where you see the hook, the focus.
Why do I stand up here? Anybody?
To feel taller.
No. Thank you for playing, Mr. Dalton. I stand upon my desk to remind myself that we must constantly look at things in a different way. See, the world looks very different from up here. You don't believe me? Come see for yourselves. Come on. Come on. Just when you think you know something, you have to look at it in another way. Even though it may seem silly or wrong, you must try. Now, when you read, don't just consider what the author thinks. Consider what you think. Boys, you must strive to find your own voice. But the longer you wait to begin, the less likely you are to find it at all. Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Don't be resigned to that. Break out. Don't just walk off the edge like lemmings. Look around you. There you go, Mr. Christie. Thank you. Yes. Dare to strike out and find new ground. Now, in addition to your essays, I would like you to compose a poem of your own, an original work. Learn. That's right. You have to deliver it aloud in front of the class on Monday. Bon chance, gentlemen. Mr. Anderson, don't think that I don't know that this assignment scares the hell out of you, you mole.
Okay, he's teaching a unit on poetry, on finding your own voice. What did you see, hear, and think about? Where was, as it relates to hook, focus, what do you think?
I do like the idea that the hook was less content heavy and more so about getting their attention. I don't necessarily know.
Sometimes it
how
has
do
to be
all
that.
the time,
Yeah.
But it definitely got their attention first without necessarily making them feel like, oh, this is more work.
Didn't cost him any money either.
Right.
What else do you think? You think anybody has any ideas on how to find their own voice? See, you guys are all looking at your shoes and stuff, pretending I'm not here. I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. As the kids would say. Uh-huh.
I think it's difficult for students to find their own voice when they've been told their voice for so long, so they don't really have, or they don't know their own voice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was allowing them to find their own voice by letting them write a poem of their choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No restrictions.
Mm-hmm. See, we're scared to turn them loose sometimes because we don't know what they're going to come up with. You know, we don't know if we can handle what they come up with.
Right. He didn't set any boundaries.
Exactly. You know, this comes down to something else that we are always really good at with our students, and that is trusting them. Trust that they will follow through, trust that they will do the things that we want them to do and learn the things if we turn them loose. So we are reluctant to release our hold and to back up and to get silent sometimes. What is the first thing I said to you this morning? Why am I here? Do you remember? Why am I here today?
Yeah, that was a cup of coffee ago, so. For me.
I am here because I intend to learn from you too. Y'all remember that? If you open yourself to that thinking and that philosophy and that approach, how can you not learn? Something is going to happen that's going to resonate. I'm leaving out of here with some ideas today and some different thinking today. Dating game for one. You better believe I got a workshop on Monday. We're going to do a dating game up in there. Okay. But you see, we have to turn them loose and we have to trust. You may have somebody come up with something off the wall, but that may increase your learning even more. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Go ahead, finish.
Oh, sometimes we want them, we release them and we let them find their voice so long as they stay in this box.
Yes, find your voice in this parameter.
Exactly.
And that's not always a bad thing.
Okay.
It isn't. Sometimes we need to give them some focus so that they don't go off into tangents, into areas that's beyond the borders of what we're there to accomplish. That's not always a bad thing. Yeah. I'm not knocking any of our good strategies. What I'm suggesting is that some of them can be better in certain places. Okay? Uh-huh.
Oh, I was going to say that I did an assignment with my students to have them create a superhero based on a physiology system and things like that. Gave them no boundaries, and I got one that was very sexually explicit with the reproductive system. She got an A because it was anatomically, physiologically correct.
Hey, you got to go with it.
And I had to remind myself that
you asked for it.
topics, well, not only that, but topics of sexuality are vital
different
topics. I don't study them, but I can't knock someone else for being interested in it.
And who knows? You may have just encouraged the next Dr. Ruth or somebody who, I mean, you know, you don't know. Exactly. Hey, the bottom line is, what are we really there for? Facilitate the learning, okay? And sometimes they do come up with things that is not to our liking or even understanding. What do we do about it? Do we spike it and shut it down? Or do we figure out ways to channel and go with the flow and keep it within the parameters of why we're there? Think about that.
Even what I've seen before in the past, not for me personally, is when they don't have parameters or any box, and students go off tangent. Professors that I've known in the past tend to be upset with the student.
Sure.
And not with themselves for
setting it up that way. Right. And see, that's where when we mess up on something, we don't always learn how we need to do it the next time. We just cut it out. We spike it and we punish whoever Okay? I've been punished a lot in my life because I'm a very divergent thinker. Always have been. And at this stage and age, I guess I always will be. I have been in lots and lots of trouble as an employee. I'm not an easy person to supervise because I don't see the world the way other people see it always, and I don't think the way other people see it. Now it's interesting. Now I get to travel all over the world to teach the stuff I used to get written up for. I'm serious. Yeah, my personnel file was always, thicker than it should have been. But that's just the way things work sometimes. Again, do you spike it or do you figure out a way that you can channel it into the learning that needs to happen? Okay? Yes?
I also think that's one of the most powerful things that can happen in a classroom space with students. When you go in and you have plan A, B, and C, and you're plan A, when you look in their faces and you see it's not working,
yeah.
and you let them know, hold up, wait a minute, rewind, we got to do something else. Plan A is not working, let's try B. And if B is not moving, you're okay with moving to C. And I think that's a powerful piece for students to be able to see that you came in ready with a plan, but that plan didn't necessarily work based
You are
on where
so
the
on the
student
money.
was that day and where they were able to connect.
Choose
with
one.
what you were doing.
You are so on the money. No, just choose one out of the pile. Because, see, again, you what? You lead by example here. You show that you are human. Too often we feel like we have to be the most perfect person, that we can't make any mistakes. Our students, we got to be in charge and in control. What is wrong with saying, okay, hold up. We aren't really learning what I need us to learn today. Let's back up and see if we can redo this and do this another way. And give me till tomorrow, I'll bring a better lesson. But in the meantime, this is what we're going to do today because this is going to be good. Oh, this is going to be better. What is wrong with that? And nothing. We're getting ready to do an activity now. I want you to choose one of these sheets. And I'd appreciate it. Try not to write on them because I reuse them. These are actual ads out of a magazine, out of different magazines. And here, without looking, just choose one. Okay? No, per person. What I'm going to ask you to do is to look at this magazine ad, whatever your choice is, and figure out how it represents engagement, okay, out of it, or does it represent involvement? All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me have your attention again, please. Okay. Now, you all have to have chosen one that represents the group to talk to us about why it represents engagement as opposed to involvement. So, we'll start with this table right here. You want to show us the ones you had or talk about the ones you had, the one you chose?
Okay, well. These are the different ones that we did have.
That's the British Royal Guard with one falling over. And a cat.
But we opted to do this one for the group. And one of the things that I think is important about this
The
is
Chihuahua.
that if you look at the compact Chihuahua as a student and the individual here, the driver of the traveler, as a teacher, and if you could really look at this close up, you'd see that while the teacher may have packed a lot of things together and provided a lot of resources here, he's very confident if you look at his face, whether he's in meditation or prayer or just a full-fledged point of getting prepared, but he's trusting this student, not taking on stereotypical behavior and saying that, because normally something like this would have a team of dogs, but this is a small Chihuahua that you normally would not see pulling a heavy load of sled. But while the teacher has packed all of these resources together, content, knowledge, exercises,
his face is saying, I have the freedom to trust that the student will be able to properly deconstruct, to be able to unpack what to get us to
Oh, Lord.
And if you look at it, the dog is standing there ready to go.
I've been to church, y'all.
Hit the reins. I will take you where you need to go.
All right. All right. Give them a round of applause. This is excellent.
The other part is up here. You know, you got the snow, but there's clarity all around them, even in the depth of the snow. So
all right. Thank you. Give them a round. All right. Who do you want to hear from next? Okay. Who's next? Who do you want to hear from?
Pass.
That's not her option.
I'm not following it.
That's not an option. Okay. What did y'all choose?
We didn't understand. Well, first, I'm not talking. Go ahead.
No, please.
You were talking when I came over. All three of you were.
Yes, but I don't see how. Okay, well, let me show.
It's okay.
Pictures.
Sometimes it is that you don't. It's not there.
So this was mine, and so I recognize this as, you know, we're living in this technology and information age, and it can be overwhelming. If you see here, you know, this newspaper is more than half the size of the yard, and so it's overwhelming. And if you look at this dog, who's usually, you know, or at least how I see them, they're usually engaged to the point that they are wrestling with the, you know, newspaper, playing around with it. They see it as overwhelming as well. So that to me doesn't necessarily represent engagement, though. It represents, you know, being overwhelmed. And, you know, if I have to be involved, I will. You know, that's what I saw from this. This looks like pearls in a shell. Have no idea how that represents engagement. And this one was engagement or involvement. Is this pearls in a shell? Okay. No. And this was the 12 Days of Christmas song. You know, I see that as engagement, because when you know, when you get this, when you see the 12 maize of milk and maize, 5 golden rings, and however the song goes, it sends you to this place. It makes you want to become engaged to the point that you're singing the song, or at least trying to learn it, relearn it. I never learned it. I only know the partridge and the pear tree. Only the 5 golden rings. Who doesn't know the 5 golden rings part, right? So, you know.
But she tried to get into it because she knew the song. He didn't know the song. It's not part of who he is at all. And he was like, well, he was relating it to math.
Yeah, I was thinking whether it was a sequence or something.
Yeah. Either way, well, what happened at the table, even though they didn't get the pictures? They were into it, weren't they? They were debating and arguing.
Like, this too deep.
And the 2 pearls, it was great. Okay, which table?
Pearls, can you explain?
2 pearls sitting in a shell. They are relating to each other. They are looking at how they are similar and how they are different. They have globes on them. Okay. I really cut you short in time. You didn't have a lot of time. Okay.
Oh, that's time.
Yeah. Okay, the global perspective. Okay. Snake eggs. Oh. See, the science people come in there every time. As long as you just stay away from the blood and stuff, I'm okay. Which one do you want to hear from? Which table?
Dr. Mason's table is awfully quiet.
Oh, okay.
We had 2 pictures here. We see, it looks like a father and son, perhaps, where they're engaging.
Yeah, trying to shave.
Right? And the transfer knowledge from the father to the son, and how he deeply involved in how much happiness is bringing him. Learn this new task.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. And who do you want to hear from next? Okay.
You got to be
Yeah.
So here's our picture.
Mm-hmm.
We made the argument that it's engagement because it looks like he's conforming.
Oh, he's
the
trying.
others.
Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of.
Oh, he got in
He's
line.
assimilating.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
He's looking at what they're doing and trying to be the same.
Yes.
It's like that social learning example they had.
Mm-hmm.
Gaming.
He's trying.
Right.
What did we miss?
Nothing.
Oh.
Now, this is all about what's in your head,
Okay.
not mine.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
What was
in
yours?
ours.
Oh,
Mm.
this.
Soccer ball.
I guess this was engagement to me because this was so structured and it seemed like it was like this is the way to do the design. But it was something different here in terms of the shapes and the colors.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And we have one last group. Which one? You all had several.
Yeah, we had So we had this one, and it's a tiger front with a sheep's back. We had this one, which is an elephant and a donkey hugging each other in front of the White House.
Wish that would happen.
Well, and then we had this one, which is a bra with 3 cups. Now we had listen, can I go through all 3 of them? So this one we thought would be good for, let's say, ASU 1201 or something like that. One class where we're teaching students about themselves, because polydactyly is a condition, but you can cut the 3rd one off, or you can embrace it and find a way to accommodate it.
Ah.
This one is a tiger with a sheep's back, and so this is the face that we tend to put on, even though we may feel weak, and so this would be a good way of addressing that. And then this one, depending on whether you're hopeful or cynical, can have a different meaning. Some of our thinking was that this would be what we would like to see happen, that the 2 sides would come together. I kind of thought that this is what's already happening and we just don't know it. Right, so behind closed doors, everybody's hugging and spending time, and then when it comes to the masses, we have to pick sides. So all 3 of these could be engaging, depending on how you use them.
Okay. All right. We give everybody a round. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I can provide another explanation of our pictures.
Okay.
I think she did a very good job to represent our group, and but I can provide another explanation of this picture. So I'm thinking that this dog is a teacher, and this man is the student.
Ah, the reverse.
Reverse thinking, yeah. So look at the teacher. The teacher says that, okay, the teacher didn't really look around to care about the student. And the student is very comfortable. They put up a heavy jacket. It's very warm here. It looks like the student do not want to go do not want to follow the teacher to the journal because he didn't know, how hard and how difficult. But the teacher says that you have to go with me because the teacher says that, you have to follow me because if you don't follow me, you can't survive. See here?
Yeah.
The teacher carry all those resources, right? So,
yeah.
so saying that, okay, if you don't learn from me or you don't acquire those knowledge, you can survive later.
Excellent.
Is that right?
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. Give them a round. Lots of thinking. Now, let's debrief just a little bit. Think about this. What just happened in this room? What did I do? Nothing. Who's going to leave out of here with their brains tired and who's not? Isn't that what we want to happen in terms of our classrooms? If you go home day after day, exhausted, and they bouncing out here, rolling around this campus and doing whatever else, who's done all the work? See, this is something else I want us to think about when we're talking about engaging our students and looking at who's doing all the work. I had the most fun. Everybody had fun, but I bet I had the most because I got to hear some of all of y'all's thinking and picking up ideas from all of you and how you interpreted what this assignment was, which was very unclear deliberately. Okay? Deliberately, because I wanted to see what you're going to do with this. You took it from everywhere, from the teacher and the student's perspective to how would I use this if I were passing this out in a class right now, to what does this really mean and the differences between engagement and involvement, to I don't have a clue, but let's look at it anyhow. You know? Think about this. What did it cost me? Pictures out of a magazine I was looking at anyhow. Thinking about the point that we wanted to get conveyed here. And would it be engaging? Would it be fun? Okay? Let's take about a 10-minute break and think about that some more. Okay? How cool is that?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, folks, everything we've been talking about pretty much continues to begin with our planning, with our goals, begins with enduring understandings. All right? And I understand that you have been dealing a little bit with understanding by design, looking at backwards planning and beginning with the end in mind. The enduring understandings. What is it they're supposed to know, understand, and be able to do? What is essential? That's what has to first be decided, because everything that you teach is not essential. Some of it is just plain important to know, but it isn't essential. And then some of it is just nice to know. And oftentimes, sometimes some teachers spend too much time on nice to know stuff. And then the students don't get to the enduring understandings because we spend too much time. We don't have it in balance. So I want you to think about how you make those decisions in your planning. And sometimes that means you got to let go of some previous notions that you might have had as to what is real and what isn't. Okay? So when we talk about engagement, we're talking about 5 key classroom conditions. Now, this is another approach. We looked at the hook, the focus, the ratchets, and the tightening up. Here is another way of looking at this. Don't try to do all of it. Remember, I keep warning you, you try to do everything, you're going to end up paralyzing yourself. Okay? But this is another way of looking at engagement. Dr. Ferguson, some of you may be familiar with his work. He does a lot of work on African American males and their achievements, and African Americans mostly, but kids of color. He's out of Harvard. He's very well known for his research in those areas. Yes, big time. Achievement gaps. But these are the 5 areas he recommends some serious focus. Now, even if you follow his research, I'm going to suggest very strongly that you don't try to do all of it at once. Pick one of these areas to start. And maybe it might take you a year or even 2 years to feel like you're comfortable with it. So what? Not doing it simply means that you won't be reaching the kids you could have been reaching. But pick one of these areas. This one, the one that's highlighted in red, is highlighted in red because that's part of what we are dealing with today with the strategies. Does that make sense? Okay? But all of it is important. And then once you get to reading and really following his philosophy, what you will find is that you're already doing a lot of it. It's a matter of integrating it and making what you're already doing better. Does anybody have any questions about this? Any of this? Does this make sense to you? Because we've been saying a lot about relevance this morning. A whole lot about relevance. about whether it's enjoyable and fun, whether we are encouraging and maintaining high expectations. And we fling that term around a lot, high expectations. I don't know anybody who will say, I don't have high expectations for my students. But you know what? We all mean so many different things. So, what do we mean when we say high expectations? What does any of us mean when we say high expectations? See, sometimes we have what we think are high expectations, but too often we have what I categorize, and my friends do when we have a glass of wine or two, as a plantation mentality. Okay? What do we really mean when we say high expectations? I'm not going to ask you to find that today, but I challenge you to clarify what do you really mean and talk about that amongst each other, because that's really important. And I would venture to guess that we have as many definitions as we have people in this room. Not bad, just different. And if change is going to happen in terms of the departmental level or whatever level you want to put it at, it's going to have to happen collaboratively with others, not just yourself. Does that make sense? So all of us need to continue to talk about that. And what do we mean by that? But we're not going there today because that's not what today is about. And multiple instructional strategies, kids have to believe they can. Too many students arrive at this university and they are the creme de la creme from their high schools. But they arrive here already with a defeatist attitude about themselves and their own learning and what their capabilities are. Somebody has taught them along the way that they have limitations. Somebody did that. Where I'm not judging, I'm not suggesting who, but I would venture to say a number of your students arrived at this university with those notions about who they are already and what they can do. And they will take, if you don't break that chain, they will keep it. They will leave out of here with the same ones or worse. And I did my dissertation on minority middle school females in mathematics achievement, because I got turned back around. But I'm just saying, teachers have to teach them that yes, you can. Because they don't always know that. And even those who may have an abundance of confidence are insecure about something, that we have to turn it around. Because the human spirit will not reach its full potential. Too often, those of us in schools make judgments about kids, knowing what we do know in their backgrounds, and we place limitations on them unwittingly, unknowingly, about those judgments, about what somebody's potential is. There is no human way at all to accurately know what somebody else's potential really is. But we do it all the time. I tell you what, my high school guidance counselor, I told you I'm full of bad examples. My high school guidance counselor refused to send my transcript to a college because she said Vera isn't college material. You got that too? She flat out refused to send it. She said it wasn't worth the postage, which stamps were 4 cents then, okay? 4 cents. I wasn't worth 4 cents is the message that was conveyed to me. And my mother went to the school angry that the woman wouldn't invest 4 cents on my postage to send my transcript. And the principal had to meet with my mother to calm her down. I'm sitting outside in the hallway, but the door was open and I could hear everything. Because, kids hear everything. As long as you don't look somebody in the face, You can hear and know everything that's going on. Okay, y'all know this. Don't look them in the eye. My friends and I are learning Spanish. We're getting pretty good at it. We don't look anybody in the eye. We go out, we sit amongst people, and we listen. Okay? It's kind of cool, fun. But we're learning it on a weekly basis in our community. Yeah. ¿Cómo está usted, señora? Sí. We're getting there. Gracias.
So after you graduated from college, did you ever sing your concerts?
Oh, well, you want to hear Paul Harvey's rest of the story? This lady had the misfortune of marrying my cousin later. She can't get away from me. And I made sure, in fact, when I earned my doctorate degree from Vanderbilt, they wrote an article about it in the local paper in my hometown, because I was the first in my family to achieve that. And I made sure that I got a copy and put it in the mail to her and put the stamp on the envelope and circle the stamp, okay? Yeah, because I'm like that. We're not supposed to be. That's one of my characteristics that I have to pray on. But yeah. But that was the case. But how many other kids would have said, yeah, and just said, okay. This woman wasn't angry at me. She didn't hate me. She really thought she was trying to do what was best for me. She really thought that I needed to just go to work and learn a trade and learn a skill. And as she said, and this is a black lady, be a credit to my race. Y'all know. This has nothing to do with racism. This was a woman trying to do her very best for one of her students. But she placed her limitations on me based on her perceptions. Now, in all fairness, did I give anybody any reason to think? I have to honestly say, not that much. I had a wonderful time, but it wasn't all focused on where my teachers wanted it to be. If I didn't like the teacher, I would do the homework because my mother made sure we did. But I ain't turn it in. I don't have to give it to that heifer. That was my attitude, right? I do it because mother made sure we did. But mother wasn't at school. So when the teacher would see her at church and say, Vera hasn't turned in any homework this week, mother was like, I know she did it. And she would look at me, and I can't tell a lie on church ground. I would go and imply that the teacher must have lost it, okay? Or something. So, kids work against themselves because they are kids. That's who they are. They are kids. And I don't care if they're 20 years old, they're still kids. So we have to think about which one of these, and I challenge you today, and I'm going to ask you to mark this slide, put a big X around it, because I'm going to ask you at the end of the day to think about which one of these areas you think you might want to concentrate on as in the beginning, or as an addition or an enhancement of where you already are in your thinking. Does that make sense? Not an extra, but as something else you're thinking about, okay? We look at engagement. Here's another perspective from another researcher. Carol Tomlinson is the author of Differentiated Instruction, or the main author. There are lots of them out there now. But she defines engagement in these ways. It's the same thing, just a different way of articulating it. So these two slides, I'm challenging you to think about how you would do this, how you can enrich this in your own instruction. What examples can you give yourself? We begin a lot in our planning with establishing our relationship with our students. If you don't have a relationship with them, nothing else is going to happen. I'm going to tell you that now. Remember the kid who does the homework and doesn't even turn it in? So even a bad relationship is a relationship. It can be changed. But you got to have some kind of relationship with the students. But too often we get our course syllabus together, get ourselves together, our strategies, our lessons, and we get in that room and we teach and we work. We just work. And you don't know them and they don't know you. And I actually have heard people say, I don't want to get to know them. I don't have time for that. But you know what? If you don't know them and they feel like they don't know you, they're not giving you their best. They're just going to give you what they think you want. You know, it's just like people say, don't touch them because you don't want to get sued and all of that. And I say to you, everybody knows the difference between good touches and bad touches and where to touch and where not to touch. And sometimes for some of these kids, that's the only human contact they have in their lives is you. They come in here, they see you, and some of them are day students. They leave this campus and they go to conditions and situations that you have no idea about, and you're the only good thing they got going in their lives. How many times have I seen former students? I saw one, what was it, last Sunday? I was in Barnes and Nobles. I don't even go to the bookstores anymore because I do my Kindle thing and Amazon. But I was hanging out with a friend of mine. We had lunch together and we were having a good time, and he wanted to go to the Barnes and Nobles. I'm like, you antique, you know, but we go rolling up in there, okay? And this guy walks up to me with a beard and a cute little kid, about 3 years old. He said, excuse me, but didn't you used to be a principal? And I said, well, are you from the IRS or the sheriff's office? And he said, no, ma'am. He says, I remember that humor. You were a middle school principal. And I said, well, yeah. And he says, Dr. Blake? I said, yeah. He says, I was one of your students. Now, this guy is at least like 35, 40. And I said, oh, well, you know, cool. It's nice to meet you. And the many you, you know. And he went on to tell me that, you know, how much he still remembers his middle school years and how good it was. And I don't have a clue who he was. And he, that I was always so encouraging to him. I don't remember him at all. You don't know who you touch and how you touch. Now, I was just the principal. But now my students, most of my students, and I didn't always know this, when they approach me, I almost remember, I can, once I figure out who they are, I can remember something about them. And they were like, they always go, you still remember that? Oh my God. I mean, how often does this happen to you? You don't know how important sometimes, and don't think about how important you are in their lives. And the relationships you build shape their lives and shape how they interact with other people. And this is forever. They're not going to build a whole lot of statues for everybody in this room and put them up in a park somewhere for pigeons to poop on. It ain't going to happen. But your legacy happens in what happens with you do for everyone that you encounter. And it starts with your relationship with them. It starts with collaborativeness in your lessons. And this is another philosophy. This is an acronym. Some people resonate with acronyms. See, I'm giving you different stuff, but it's the same stuff. It's just another way of articulating the same thing. Pies. I love pies. Whereas Dr. Medlin already knows I love sweet potato pie. And you can always lure me to Albany, Georgia, as long as Charlie and Pearls is still here. Okay. Because that's where I get my sweet potato pie when I come, most of the time. And my fried chicken. I've been all over the world, and they have the best. Okay? To me. But this one resonated with me because of the acronym in terms of collaborative lessons. So when we're building cooperative groups, and I suggest that we consider doing that more and more and more in our classrooms, it gives them connections to do and learn what you need them to learn. And we know that peer interactions is a powerful way of learning. We know this. So we'll keep looking at different ways to do that. But don't just throw people in a group and give them an assignment like I'm doing with you. Okay? And I just give you some benefits of it here. And here's a cooperative note-taking strategy. It doesn't always mean they have to be in groups. The whole class can be in a cooperative situation. They take notes from one another. This is a way to let them take notes. It's a strategy. Very doable. Okay? Here's the directions for doing this strategy. Cooperative note-taking. This way, you make sure that they got good notes, but you didn't have to give them, because a lot of times we do teacher-directed notes. Give them the notes and then they have to finish filling in. You stop and you let them have your notes. If you do that, they don't have to do any work. And guess who did all the work? Stop it. If you're doing all the work, stop it. This is a strategy to put it right where it belongs with other people in that room. Corners is another strategy that's useful for engaging them and giving them the opportunity to do the work. This is also a pre-assessment strategy where, like my friend is teaching a course for the University of Virginia, and we started to put her syllabus together. And we're going to meet Saturday to look at additional strategies that she's going to use throughout. And she started the first night of class with corners, putting them all in. She had to put them in 4 corners of the room. They get to choose which corner. And once they go in, they got certain tasks they have to perform in that corner and come out with. Who's doing the work? It's a pre-assessment for her to find out what they already know. This is a school community relations course that she's teaching. What they already know and have done, what experiences they've already had with the work. Now she's collected that information and we're meeting tomorrow at my house, and we're going to use that information to map out the rest of her instruction and stay within the goals of the syllabus. Does that make sense? Pre-assessment. Let me clarify a little bit too, because one of the interesting things I've found over the years and in multiple places that I go, differentiated instruction is another one of those misunderstood philosophies about teaching. People think it's a whole lot of stuff that it isn't. They think it's cooperative learning. They think it's learning styles. They think it's a bunch of strategies. Differentiated instruction, real differentiation, is about thinking about your kids, preparing for them, planning for them, and execute a plan that is best for their learning needs. Boom. It's that simple. All this other stuff are pieces that contribute to the whole of differentiation. It's very, very misunderstood. It took me a while to learn it myself.
So you mean that differentiation, you have to prepare a lesson plan for each individual student?
No. That's another one of the misunderstandings. That it's individualized instruction. Yeah, it is not. We can give you a whole list of things it's not. That's another whole session on differentiated instruction. And I teach that only because I've spent a lot of time, Carol Tomlinson is a friend of mine, and she's drilled it, and it took me a while to get it. And even and it's still a process that I continue to learn more and more about. But it's basically a very simple philosophy. It's not a set of strategies at all. It's a philosophy. It is a philosophy. It's a way of thinking. And that's where you begin when you think of differentiated instruction. It's a way of thinking. Okay? And I'll leave it at that because that's overly simplistic, but it is what it is. Okay? The cool thing about us in education now is that we've got credible stuff that we can hang ourselves on, frameworks that we can hang ourselves on. It used to be that we would go to our university coursework and we would learn from the professors who haven't seen a kid in 30 years, okay? And didn't always understand that there's current ways of looking at things, because they were locked into their way of doing things. We now know more about learning and teaching than ever before. But we're so busy that we don't always have time to absorb it and assimilate it into our own practices. That's where people like me come in. Because we try to simplify it and break it down so that you can absorb the pieces you need. It's like eating fish. Take out what you need and you recycle the rest. Some of it you eat in one meal, some of it you have multiple meals, and you spread it out so you don't get sick of fish. Does that make sense? You take the bones, you recycle them. So you think about our learning now, we're in a different place, but some of us haven't all the way caught up yet. Problem-based learning, okay? Or start with versus project-based learning. Different philosophies, guys. There is no one way and no right way and no wrong way, but it behooves us to get familiar with a variety of ways so we can mix and match as need. Then you don't get lost. When I first started teaching, those people I admired and respected the most, man, they subscribe to what I consider now the yellow note syndrome. Does everybody know what that is? They would come back to school, unlock those closets, go through those file drawers and pull out those lessons. They were so old, they were yellow. I'm a young teacher. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, man, I can't wait till my notes get yellow. That's what I aspired to, the yellow notes. I wanted my notes to be aged so I could come back and I could just pull them out and go. It never happened. Things changed so rapidly and so much. There was nothing wrong with those teachers. But if you got yellow notes today, you're getting eaten alive in your classrooms or ignored. And it's showing up on your evaluations. If you got yellow notes, it's a problem. So we think about looking at the different ways that we can teach. Project-based, problem-based. I just put this in. These are self-explanatory. And if you take a look at them, if you have any questions, we could ask them now. I'll just give you the grid. Begin with the end in mind. Okay? That's where we begin. And then we go to designing, crafting the essential questions. Third step, decide the assessment. Now, one of the things that's interesting to me is to look at, remember student teaching days? We were taught to do a lesson plan. Some of us might have had that experience and some not, because we all come from different perspectives. Some of us went through student teaching days, and those days, they taught us to do your objectives first. All students will be able to, okay? Y'all remember that language? And then they taught us to choose our strategies. Okay? Boom, 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 boom. Then they taught us to pick out your materials and the equipment. Okay? And then the last thing was evaluation and how we're going to test them. Remember that? That was the structure. We now know that that's not the most effective way to plan. We also now know that if you don't have a plan, it's like getting behind the wheel of a car and then decide, well, I guess I'm going to go to Tallahassee, but I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to start driving and see if I end up there. Nobody does that. If you're going to Tallahassee or you're going to Atlanta, what is the first thing you're going to do? You're going to plan the trip, right? You're going to figure out where it is, the route you should take.
We have GPS right now.
Yes. But you have to put something in it. You turn it on and say, GPS, take me, because it's coming. Because if you've seen the Google cars, man, I can't wait to get me a Google car. A Google car, Google. Oh, yes. You get in and see, because in this country, we put in addresses in the GPS. Other countries, you put in the coordinates, the global coordinates, because they don't always have addresses like we do. And you put in the coordinates, longitude, latitude, and it's much more accurate than an address. And so in a Google car, you put in the coordinates, and you can take a nap if you want to. You start it up. It is programmed not to run into anything and obstacles. It doesn't crash. It's been on the road now in Colorado, California, and Florida for 3 years. The state legislatures had to change the laws to make it legal to be on the road. It has not been in but 2 accidents, and both of those were caused by people rather than the machines. It stops, drives. It's the coolest thing. I can be 95 years old and drive at night because I don't have to worry about seeing. And I want the teenagers to all have them.
Right.
Okay? But think about this. Think about the lessons we design now. We know that in designing today's lessons, that we begin with what the learning goals are. And the learning goals are far more comprehensive than all students will be able to. Okay? It's what is it we want them to know, understand, and be able to do with it. How is it relevant and applicable to their lives? We start with the learning goals. The second piece about planning now, we know, should be, how do we know they got it? The assessment. Which means that the assessment has to be more than just the test at the end. You've got to check along the journey. Because if you get in your car and you say you're going to Atlanta and you don't read any road signs, what are you likely to do? You could easily get off track and end up somewhere else if you aren't checking yourself on that journey. Does that make sense? And we have misused the concept of assessment. And we interchange assessment and evaluation, and they're 2 distinctly different functions.
So the difference between assessment and evaluation.
Big time. Big. An ongoing or performance assessment versus summative assessment at the end. Formative assessment is a big part of what we need to plan for. That's why we used to teach people to do daily lesson plans, and that was it. We teach people now to do chunks of lessons, a unit of study, a big time frame of study, and then you extract your daily stuff from that. But you got the big picture first. Does that make sense? So you begin with your objectives, you go to your essential questions, you go to your assessment, and then guess what? We actually, when we do those things first, we actually choose better strategies. Because now the strategies are designed to get us to that outcome, as opposed to this is a cool thing to do. Does that make sense? Think about that. Oh, okay. Yes, we got to do the cool stuff, but we got to do it appropriately. Not just because, oh, this sounds like fun. Okay. To create anything. In fact, many instructors will actually say, I'm not creative. I can't deal with that creative stuff. You know what? You better deal with it because you're teaching people that you need to teach them to do it. Does that make sense? But synthesis is also included in part of the evaluation. Because you gotta look at how it's gonna be used or how it matters. Is this making sense?
So the revised Bloom is a very standard right now, right? Is it we are using the revised one?
Yes, we use this side now because again, these are verbs. This is action. Whereas this is what it was originally. It was about thinking. But it's more now. It's deeper than thinking. It's some action is generated as a result of the thinking. Does that make sense? Okay. We're going back to looking at where we began with assessment. Formative assessment is something that we're not particularly always strong on. Let me see if I have I meant to look at a teacher talking about how she uses ongoing assessment for her students. This is a kindergarten teacher, I think, or first grade.
I think my greatest success has really been understanding how to assess and respond to student needs. I teach language arts, which is such an open subject. If I'm reading, writing, speaking, listening, or using vocabulary, I'm doing language arts. But that's not the same as knowing whether or not a student is progressing in a way that's going to lead them towards our ultimate goal of being a true critical literate thinker. And so my greatest success has been realizing these are true pathways that I want my students to take, and here's how I'm going to assess them along the way. And when they don't get to that path, this is what I'm going to do to help them. And then I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to try this, all in the effort of getting everybody where our ultimate goal is.
Because that's all it's really about. It's not about grades. In fact, a lot of formative, ongoing assessment should not be graded. Most of it shouldn't be. It's to inform you and them of their progress.
They like that.
Well, if it's meaningful, because see, we're talking about feedback. And feedback is different from commentary. We're getting deep in here today, aren't we? So much of what we give students is commentary as opposed to real feedback. Because they can't grow from it. Good job. This is excellent work. These are comments. That's not feedback.
Feedback, PE people usually do good feedback.
Oh yeah,
You're not
coaches.
saying, yeah, exactly.
Coaches do excellent feedback.
Because that's what
They don't want people hurt on the field. They don't want people injuring themselves or doing it wrong to hurt other people, possibly. They give feedback. They tell you how this can be better. They don't always even understand themselves that's what they're doing. Musicians. Music teachers give feedback. They can't have everybody playing what they want to play or playing it wrong. They give feedback. Think about that. A lot of us just give commentary. What was she saying? She does formative assessment as she goes along so she can see what their progress is, what they're learning. She can stop and change up right on the spot as opposed to waiting to the end, testing it, and then finding out that they didn't get it and I got to move on. Yes, sir.
So when you, I do this all the time. So when I give a test, I already know they're prepared. Because every day is an assessment. So if you're not
That's
prepared, why give the test?
Well, a lot of what we do, we are formatively assessing anyway and don't realize we're collecting that information. And when we don't realize we're collecting that information, guess what? We're not using it well to plan for other lessons. We collect a ton of information about our students every time we see them. And we don't even realize it, and which means we're underutilizing it for future planning for them. Think about that. How are you using the information you know about them to plan our lessons for them? Do not try to do all of this at once. You're going to drive yourself crazy. And I'm going to come here with a film crew at my own expense to film you for America's Funniest Video. Okay? So I'm just saying, formative assessments should not be graded. It's for information for growth. Because you'll have us, why should I do this if I'm not getting a grade? You can look at a lot of ways to motivate and inspire them to do this. So that they can see that but you know, the biggest piece of motivation is for them to see their own ahas and their own growth. You know how excited kids get when they see that they are making progress? It's how you set it up. It's always how you set it up. And if you mess up, set it up again another way. Don't just abandon it. Does that make sense? So I challenge you to think about assessment and ongoing. The critical distinction between formative assessment and summative assessment. Formative is for learning and summative is of learning. Does that make sense? How much are we doing? And I give you the definitions here, which everybody here can read on their own. But one of the areas where we are not as efficient often also is in pre-assessment. How we set it up, how we collect the information we need to have to do. What do your students know? How do you find out what they know? Multiple ways. And they're not pencil and paper or formalized always. Just a thumbs up. How many of you have heard of this? How many of you remember? How many of you don't know? I mean, that's a pre-assessment. There's tons of ideas that we use already and we don't even realize. And then we don't take that information into our planning. I've given you lists of them, several slides of pre-assessment strategies. Take a look at them. One of the things I know, K and what do you know, need to know, and want to know? And there are several examples of that. Okay? So take a look at the strategies. Make sure you know what they are. Okay? Take one and pass it. Everybody got two? We may need to, yeah.
So we have two.
Yeah, let's see.
We'll take two.
All right, here's another one and another one. Somebody's gonna have some extra. Does everybody here have at least two?
No.
She only has one.
Okay. Okay. All right, then that means I'm gonna double up. Somebody's gonna have three here.
Three.
Okay, somebody has three here. Both of you get three. Okay. All right, now.
So three.
Three. Okay. Let's see. All righty. Okay, I have a jacket like this, so I'm going to choose you.
Okay.
All right, listen up, everybody. This is a third grade activity. Okay. In Virginia, in math curriculum in the third grade, we teach kids, that's the last time we teach kids how to tell time. Okay? Now, I'm going to assume that everybody here has passed third grade and can now tell time. Okay? So, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to start with this lady here. And what she's going to do is she's going to choose one. How about this one? Now, no ad-libbing. You have to read this exactly like it is written. Okay? What she's going to do is make a statement on what she has. And then she's going to ask a question. Whoever has the answer to that question has to respond. Now, what she's going to do is stand up. She is stuck standing up until somebody responds, and that person has to stand up. So she's going to start with, oh, wait, you got the sore knee.
I have 2:30. Who has 45 minutes past 3?
Who has 45 minutes past 3? Now, third grade. Look on each other. Help each other out.
What is it? 30 minutes?
45 minutes.
Who has 45 minutes past 3?
Who has your first item? I have.
Somebody has. Somebody has. I have 3:45. Who has that? Yeah, somebody has it. Somebody has. I have 3:45. Nobody has it? This can't be a defective batch. I have 3:45. Nobody has it. Nobody's admitting it. Let's see. Okay, what's the other one you have? Something's wrong here.
I have 11:50. Who has 4:30?
Okay, she's behind you.
Okay.
I have 4:30. Who has 10 minutes after midnight?
Third grade. Who has what? 10 minutes after midnight. What do you have?
I have 12:10 a.m.
But now you gotta read yours.
Yes.
And who has 18 minutes before 9?
Before what?
Before 9. 18 minutes before 9? Yeah. Who has 18 minutes?
Before 9.
What is that?
8:42. Yeah.
Who has 8:40?
I have 8:42.
Okay. Read that one. I have 8:42.
And who has 7:15?
Oh,
Okay. Now she asks who has 6:45, but she's gonna say what?
who has? Do I say what I have?
Uh-huh.
I have 6:45.
See how it's different? He asks who has 6:45, but she says.
I have 6:45.
So what am I doing as a teacher? I'm assessing. Do they really know? Okay.
Who has 2:30?
Who has 2:30? Okay.
Back to me. I have 2:30. Who has 45 minutes past 3?
Again?
Oh, so you were the one that had your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were the one.
I have 2:30.
No,
You had 3:45.
No, she just asked who has 30 minutes past 2, right?
Right. And so she's
I
asking.
have 2:30. I
Right. So you're.
So I would stand up.
Yeah, but your knee.
But,
Go
but
ahead.
I have to respond to her.
Right.
The way, right. So I have 230. Who has 45? Who has 3?
Somebody has. I have 245. 2. Wait.
Who has 45 minutes past 3?
Oh, past 3. So who has 345?
This is the question you asked me.
Right.
Right.
Somebody has. I have 345.
Nobody has 345.
Yeah, something is wrong with this.
You know, I'll make it up. I have 345.
Yeah, but then you have to ask another
I'll
question.
make it up too. Be creative.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm so sorry.
Okay. But see, this is right.
Slip. If I have quarter to 4. Who has 31 minutes before 7? I'm sorry.
Who has 31 minutes before 7?
Who has 31 minutes before 7?
Okay.
I have 6:29. Who has 11 minutes until 11?
I have 10:49. Who has 30 minutes after 3?
I have 3:13. Who has 23 past 9?
I have 9:23. Who has 5 minutes before 6? I have 5:55. Who has a quarter until 1?
Who has a quarter to 1?
12:45.
Who has 12:45?
I don't this time.
All right. Quarter to 1. Okay. You said who has quarter to 1, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So who has, somebody has, I have 12:45.
She just created.
Oh, she did? Oh, now they're going to play. Okay. Somebody has, I have 12:45.
Deborah.
I don't.
Okay.
I can say one. I have 5:49. Who has 12 minutes after 2?
12 minutes after 2. Well, I want to know where that 12:45 is.
I have 2:12. Who has 27 minutes after 3?
I have 3:27. Who has 4 minutes after 1?
I have 104. Who has 10 minutes past 4?
I have 4:10. Who has 1 minute until 3?
I have 259. Who has 7 minutes after 7?
I have 7:07. Who has 10 minutes until 12?
I have 11:50. Who has half past 4?
I have, did we start over? Because I already did mine. I have 4:30. I have 4:30. Who has 10 minutes after midnight?
Right. So that's because we cut in the middle. But if somebody hadn't slept at 3:45, what? And somebody here has. And there was no envelope. I had them in a clip.
Who has 3:45?
Somebody has. We're not going to challenge it now. But if somebody had done it, what happens is this goes all the way around and comes back to where it starts. It always comes back to where it starts. No, with her. We started with her. But somebody is sitting on that one and it's not resonating. And it's okay. You will have this happen. But this is a strategy called I have, who has. You can look it up on Google. Okay, you can use this I've seen teachers use this with the color wheel, and they will start with something like, I have blue and yellow. Who has green?
And green would say,
Green.
I have green. And who has pink and blue?
Exactly. And then somebody says, I have purple. Who has black and white? Somebody stands up, I have gray. You see how it works?
I can see this being used to test what students know.
Yes.
One person asks a question and the person who thinks they have the answer, of course, related to what you're teaching. Oh, I like it.
You can do this with multiple strategies. Bless you. You can do this with math, with equations.
Shapes and triangles.
Yes. You can do this with multiple things. You can do this with languages. Yes.
Working out functions.
We did it in our Spanish class with cinco y dos. Okay. And then cinco y dos is 5 and 2. And tiene, whatever, who has, okay? So we were doing basic math, just this simple addition with our numbers, reinforcing numbers.
So I'm thinking that it depends on how many students in your
Doesn't
class
matter.
in order to decide this type of, like for example, the question never get to me.
That's
So the rule is,
no. It didn't get to you because somebody missed the question.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
I know, but if suppose everything goes fine, but if if you have one less students, then I don't think your loops can keep going.
It always loops. It has to loop.
I know, but if everybody gets 3, you use, okay. Now, for example, right now, suppose I have 20 students here. Suppose another class only have 18. So you're missing 6 of this.
It doesn't matter.
And then the loop won't continue once you take
No,
the
because in your class of 18 students, you're gonna have 2 students that will have 3 instead of 2.
Well, you could put.
so you're saying that not everybody get the same number of
No.
questions?
So long as all of them.
Okay, I see what I'm saying.
Yes. So you hand them all out.
I see.
You will have an even number. You could do 10. You could do 20. You could do 50.
I see.
Okay?
Yeah, that will work.
Yeah. So you do, as a teacher, you do an even number. And if it doesn't work out as long as if you can do it so everybody in the class has 1 and some people have 2 and some people have 3.
I see what that will work.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like in here, everybody didn't have an equal number.
I thought you said everybody gets 3.
No, some people had 2.
Okay. Yeah, I see what I said. Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody see use for this?
Yes.
Does everybody see how it could be fun for them, not knowing? You can put people in pairs where they have to help each other. You can do it individually. But what is happening? Your students will think they're playing a game. But what are you doing? Exactly. You're finding out what they know. You can use it as a summative assessment. You can use it as a pre-assessment. It's up to you. Multiple uses. You can even have them design it if they want. Okay? I always like to have them do the work. So, with that thinking, I want you to, if you will, were you able to bring a unit of study or lessons that you have designed? Because if you have, this is the time where we would use that. Does anybody in here have any? Well,
Oh, we can do one over lunch.
Okay, this is the reason I was asking. What we would do is take something you were going to do anyhow or have done recently and will be repeating at some point in the future. We take your own work And this is the time where I would spend time with the whole class. We would examine your work and look at how we would make it stronger pre-assessment wise. Okay? But if you don't have that, I'm going to skip that part. Okay? No. No, I'm not going to set him up that way for people to rip his work up. Oh, no. Well, we would ask you, how would you pre-assess your students to find out what they already know about that? And this would be a time where we would look at a variety of pre-assessment strategies, some of which are in your packet. Which ones could you apply? You know what's a fun thing to do in your exit card? You're already doing that. You want to have a little fun with it? Today, we talked about da-da-da-da-da-da-da. These are the top 2 things or the top 3 things we talked about today. I want you to pick one and tell me a lie about it. Okay? Put it on this index card and hand it to me on the way out the door. Then you find out what they really understand, too. I want you to pick one and tell me a lie about it. You think they're not going to be interested in lying about something? I mean, but think about this. Learning is and can be more fun than it is. It just takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of talking to other people, see what they're doing. I want to go in his class so bad I don't know what to do. You know?
Well, he's invited me. We're going to team up and do
Yeah.
physics and math or something.
And look at ways that, because he's already doing, everybody is already doing good stuff. Period. Why wouldn't you take from each other? Why do you think you got to invent everything? You don't. And nobody knows it all. Nobody. Okay? So, are we into lunch now? This is a good place to stop for lunch. After lunch, be prepared to work. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, including kids' interests does make a difference. How many times have I, when I was a teacher, I would be teaching away. I would spend my own money, run all around town, find all kinds of resources and supplements, setting up stuff, buying materials, just having a good old time. And I go up in that classroom, and I'm the only one who liked it. Hurt my feelings, okay? Have you ever done that?
I just, did a overhaul of my office, cleaning it up and everything, and I threw away a lot of stuff that I bought in 2012. Bright ideas. Oh, I can't wait to show my students this.
Yeah. You know what? Because you make the same mistakes I made. So now I'm going to challenge you to make some new mistakes. Don't repeat the ones that I told you. I'm full of bad examples, right? What I failed to do was to consider the students' interests. And there were times when I even said to myself, I don't care what they're interested in, or I don't trust it. It can't be all good. I'm going to do what I enjoy. Well, the bottom line is we have to consider their interests in a major way in our planning. And we have to consider their characteristics. You remember the old style report cards? I remember in the 7th grade, I got deportment. I would have a B in science and a D in deportment. And the teacher would write on there, Vera talks excessively in class. Okay, y'all ever see those kind of things? I mean, I'm 12 years old. That's what 12-year-olds do. Why are we marking people down, grading people on their natural characteristics, or holding that against, or not accommodating that, or accounting for it? Okay? Think about that. If we're going to appeal to people's interests, then we've got to start thinking about who they are, and we got to know who they are and what does interest them. Like the example you gave this morning. You know, the girl turned in something that you weren't right ready for. But that's where her head was. And she made it relevant.
So what if, going back to what we were doing this morning, what if that interest is outside that box that you have?
Then you go out there too. That's as simple as that. You meet them where they are to take them where you want them to go. But there's no way to take people and you're not respecting. I'm not suggesting everything. I'm not suggesting going into negative cultural issues, okay? But everybody brings something positive to the table. Find out what it is. There are multiple ways to try to find out what it is and connect in that way. You know, I learned that even as a public school administrator. You got all kinds of kids in your school. I had a small high school. I had 1,200, 1,500 kids, somewhere in there. And I had gangs up in there. I mean, serious problems. Serious problems. But you know what? Those kids, I still call them kids, because they will always be kids to me. Those people didn't bother me. Nobody ever did any damage to my car. They protected me. At a football game, I'd be down on the end zone where it's in the dark area of the football field. I was perfectly safe. Wasn't nobody gonna come down there and mess with me because of the relationships, because I started from where they were. And did I support what they were doing? Oh no. Did I give them the same consequences that everybody else when they broke rules and all? Oh yeah. But it's a way that you do it. It's a way of communicating. It's a way of letting folks know that you care, and that, because see, most of the times when kids would come to my office, what you do? Nothing. Why are you here? She don't like me. That was always, she don't like me. He don't like me. And you know something? 99% of the time, the kids, no, they weren't. No, they weren't. You know what? No, I'm going to tell you what. You know what I find? They weren't right. But too many of us are afraid to let them know that we care. Too many of us don't have good strategies of ways that we are comfortable with to let them know. So what we do is we back up, and it's us and them. We're on one side of the desk, and they're on the other side. And we go with that mentality because that's the way we were taught. There are lots of positive ways to let them know that we care, that we're interested, that we're going to use their interest to help them learn best without getting sucked in and being used and abused and become their victim. Does that make sense? That's where it goes. But you got to think about it. Don't be stepping out there with trying to do something that you're uncomfortable with, because it's not going to work. Start with where you're comfortable. Start with where you want to ask. You ask people. So, if you ask the class, what do y'all want to do today? What's their response? One word. Nothing. But if you go in and you say, okay, guys, you got a choice. This or this or this. Where are we going to go? And you say, nothing ain't one of your choices. Okay? And I would say that up front. Not doing nothing is not an option. Then what is you've shifted everybody's thinking right away. They know nothing is not going to be a good answer, so they get busy trying to figure out what's the easiest thing I can do. Now, what you do is you make things complex, not complicated. There's a difference. So that there's some challenge in all of it. Does that make sense? For everybody. So again, but how are you going to do that if you don't know what they're interested in? And you don't know how to appeal to that? It's just simple logic. One of the things we know is that they're going to talk. They like talking to each other. They like communicating with each other. So you give them opportunities to work together in groups, but don't just throw them into groups. You know, one of the things, again, I'm a bad example. I always tried to make sure I got in Patricia Shelton's group. Because she was not only smart, but she's going to make sure she gets an A and going to do all the work, and I ain't had to do it. Because all I had to do was slack off, and she was going to pick up the slack. I'm sure everybody hated to be in a group with me. Did I care? You go to, like you can, there's a lot of free, online, safe and secure polling kinds of sites where you can say, okay, everybody text me what you're thinking right now, or Edmodo, or there's a bunch of them. If they're gonna do it anyway, build it in. Build it in. And then you got a screen like this, you can see what they're doing because you send everybody to this one URL and they go there and you have a question already put in. And you find out what are you thinking or what do you know about this?
So texting your phone?
You can use your phone, your iPad. They're going to bring these devices, they have them.
Okay, so I would have to purchase
No, you don't. You got a laptop sitting right in front of you.
Yes.
You use that.
Okay. All right.
You go to the URL, but that's why you set the boundaries. So if you go on your laptop to this site, this URL, you put in the questions you want them to answer, and you go on and teach your lesson, and at some point you pause and say, I want to hear what everybody's thinking. Go to this site right now, and they log in because you told them what to do, and then they answer the question right there on their phone, their iPad, whatever device they have. Yeah, and it's safe. No, you can see it right there on your screen. You see everybody log in, their name right there in front of the whole class. Yeah, they're not doing. No. See, you're fighting the tide and you're gonna lose. No, you see everybody log in right then and there on the screen. And every stroke they make, everybody can see it. Okay? It's right there. And they use their own device to do it. So, and you can see, okay, you say, Hema, I don't see you up there. What you doing? Where are you? You got your cell phone.
It's easy to monitor when you have 40-something semi-students in the course.
I didn't say it was easy. It takes practice. You start small. You start with one question, okay, or one thing, or one example. What are you teaching? Math? Okay, you go in and you put in 3 or 4 problems that they have to explain to you in using vocabulary, math vocabulary, what the process and steps are for solving those problems. And they have to, you can set it up. It's very easy to set up, very easy. And it's very easy to monitor, okay?
I just want to interact something you said in the first half. Well, what about trust? I mean, trust them. Trust that they'll do what's right. And if they don't, that's all.
Then you address the culprit, not the whole class. If there's somebody who's violating your trust, you've got another whole relationship issue with that person to begin with. Okay? But when you start giving trust, you get it back usually. And when you don't, you address it. It's that simple. And guess what else? The interesting thing is when most people in the class will give you the trust back, they're not going to like it when others don't, if you don't. And they will take action on your behalf very often. Okay? Your job then is to make sure that their action isn't too terribly negative. Okay? But you don't have to do everything. This is another problem that we have in our classrooms. We try to manage it all, and we can't. You just can't. Not very well and not consistently. So you So you set up things. You make your allies your allies. So when we start talking about letting them have conversations, there are healthy ways to let them have those conversations and stay on task, structured ways. And they feel the freedom and flexibility of being able to do that. And the one we just described was one. But you set up your parameters. You don't just throw it out there, again, without some guidance and without some structure from you. So grouping is a powerful, and mix and match your groups for different purposes, for different content areas. If there's one thing I hated was being in the group with Irving all year. Irvin Levere is a good guy, but as kids, we used to fight. And I'd be stuck with Irvin as a lab partner. Hated it. Because we were fighting all the time. So for this purpose, I could be with him. Another purpose, maybe not. And this is another mistake we make when we group. We just group people for life. That's not a good thing, okay? So that's why we're talking about being flexible. In terms of being flexible simply means that we're going to have grouping specific to this need, for this purpose, for this session, this lesson, or whatever. It doesn't mean that you got to change all the time, but it does mean we got to make some changes. When does grouping facilitate instruction? I just give you a little list. Now, since everybody can read, I was going to do this activity just for fun. Sometimes you group people based on the tasks that they have to get done. Sometimes you group them on the ways they prefer to learn. So, for example, if you want them to create a model of something and to write about it or to write a summary of what they learned while they did their research to create a model of this concept, then you want to make sure that you have different types of learners within the group. You wouldn't put all kinesthetic learners in a group because the research piece is not going to get done, right? You wouldn't put all auditory people in one group because they're going to just talk it to death and they'll never produce any product. Does that make sense? Sometimes you want to put them all together because of the task you want them to do, but sometimes you want to put people together the way they prefer to learn. And how are you going to do that if you don't know what that is? There are lots of ways, and I'm not talking just learning styles or multiple intelligences. I'm talking about using the research about how people learn, and that comes in multiple forms. Some of it will resonate with you and some won't. Pick one that does resonate with you. Some people love multiple intelligences. Some people love learning styles. Some people don't. I like a guy named Sternberg because he has 3 ways, and I can manage 3. I can design a lesson that will appeal to 3 different types of people in a heartbeat. But don't give me no 9 intelligences and tell me I got to appeal to 9 different intelligences, because my brain doesn't work that way. I'm going to get lost in the shuffle. And I'm not going to remember what I did with whom and where. And it'll be messed up for sure. So you got to pick what resonates with you. Right now, I'm going to do something with you and try to put people together who may be comfortable with people like themselves. So let's see. Okay? Okay. So that means you're going to get up and move. Now your students like moving. Okay? They like talking. So are you going to accommodate that, or are you going to fight against it? Now, what we have is we have 4 symbols on the tables. We have the square, we have a circle, we have a triangle, and we have a squiggle. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up the definitions, and you figure out which of these characteristics and most like yourself. And then you go to that table, and I'm going to give you a task to do. Okay. Y'all ready? If you are a square, this describes you. Now, I'm not talking about your work personality. I'm talking about your personal personality when you're not on the university grounds. Okay? When you're not on the university grounds, when you're at home and there's something to be done, do you just jump in there, get off my back, get out of my way, I'm going to do this that way, I know it's going to get done right? Are you that kind of person? If you are, you move to the square table. This is not, again, university person, okay? Okay, let's look at the circle description. Wait. You may change, and that's a typical square behavior. Let's get this over with. Let's get this done right now, then I can move on, okay? You may be a circle, okay? I'll do this because somebody's got to get it done. Those people get on my nerves. They are so self-sacrificing, okay? But on the other hand, when it's time to party, that's who you want to be with, okay? Because they're going to have a good time, all right? All right? They're usually very creative sometimes, all right? Now, you may be a triangle or a squiggle. Here are the definitions. You have these in the back of your packet, the very last pages. So, yes, you have to choose. It's a forced choice. You want a square or a triangle if you're torn. Yeah, I know. Those are the torn people. I know. See? Okay, let's move. We've self-identified? Okay. Now, this is on a personal level. All right, now, this is your task. I want you to talk to each other. Take a very few minutes. We're going to race through this in a bit, okay? Because I want you to see what students feel when you allow them to work with people just like themselves, okay? Now, I want you to design a short lesson plan. Just steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? That's very short. How to teach somebody to remove a splinter from a tongue. Using the way you think it should be done. If you're going to teach somebody how to do that, okay, y'all talk amongst yourselves. What's the E? Hey, I want you to note the squares have got half their list done already. Okay? Think about from your perspective. Did you see some of those characteristics come out amongst people? Because see, most of us have, number one, we all have all of the characteristics, but we have dominant and preferred ways to interact. But what do you think?
I think if you have a splinter in your tongue, you can get some square.
We are stuck. The squares. But you see, this is what happens when you mix and match people based on the task, based on who they are, what they prefer. You all just self-identified off the top of your head. Then some of you had people in your group you tried to kick out. They tried to kick her out. They tried all kinds of ways to kick her out. And every time she opened her mouth, they shut her down. I noticed. Yes, I know. I know. I know. But y'all were off together. I mean, this is the kind of normal interaction that happens in those types of situations. So I just encourage you to think about who these folks are and how you mix and match. When you put people in a group and people don't accomplish the group task, we make classic errors. We try to give everybody in the group the same grade, regardless of their level of contribution. Wrong, wrong, and wrong. When you put people in a group, you should have a very clear rubric of what everybody's role is in that group, what their contribution is in that group, so that regardless of what the end product is, which is very important, but everybody gets credit for their contribution to that product or whatever it is, and they have their own product as well as the group outcome. So grouping people is no easy task, it's no simple thing, and we are used to just throwing people together, and then we get upset when they don't get the job done, or some of them shut down, or they violate our trust in terms of group norms, what we expect the group norm to be. It's tough. It's not a simple thing. It takes planning. So if you're thinking that you want to engage students through grouping better, you're going to have to do a lot more thinking about how you group them. And that's why I put this kind of thing in, to kind of get us on a track of thinking about how we group them. Now, yes, sir?
Are there any assessment tests that are like online or something related to this?
Yes.
I can give this to a student?
Yes, you can. There are lots of them online. The trick is to find the credible ones. Okay, Myers-Briggs is the only one that has stood the test of time. Everything else comes and goes. But while it's here, it can give you some good information. Okay?
What I do is I just have them go to the internet and find a free assessment that explains it. And most of them are close or similar. And then what I ask them to do, though, is to, once they agree or disagree with the test, and if a teacher did not teach their learning style, what would they do? How would they be successful?
That is an excellent point you make. And there's a teacher I used to work with when I was working in coaching and training and teaching a school in Detroit. And we talked a lot about learning modalities. And the school staff, the faculty made the decision that that was going to be their emphasis for 2 years, that they were going to learn how their kids preferred to learn, and then they were going to design instruction based on what they knew about their kids. And grouping was a strategy that they were going to use. And one guy, I will never forget it, is English. He used learning styles, Bernice McCarthy's learning styles inventories. And there are 4 quadrants there. And what he did was he inventoried his students, and then he made little symbols in his book by their name, so he knew who had a preferred dominant style. Now, one thing he also recognized is that on different tasks, the same person will have different preferences in the way they want to interact with it, or in the content area. For example, in science class, some people may really, really prefer certain types of labs, and the same person will respond differently when you give a different kind of part of the concept of a concept. Does that make sense? So what he did was he went one step further. He taught his students what their preferred styles. A lot of times what we do is we inventory and we find out and we use it. But he taught his students what they preferred. They need to know their strengths. They need to know that they have multiple strengths in multiple areas, and that different parts of themselves come forth based on the kind of task or their interest in that task. Does that make sense? Yes.
Okay, so now my question would be, we can do this individually with our students, but then is there any responsibility on our behalf to help them also learn some of the other ways? Because when they leave us, we can't.
That's exactly
the
right.
next teacher or the next institution
We'll
they
know
go to
that.
will do that.
And that's the whole point of teaching them to recognize their own strengths. And it was really helpful for his students. I overheard them say things to him like, oh, I can use this in Miss So-and-so's class because that's how I am. And she always just lectures and it bores me. Blah, 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 blah. And they knew. They made that transference. But they also tried to use it against him. Like this kid raised his hand and he says, what is it, Lionel? He says, Mr. Jackson, I can't do this assignment. He says, why not? He says, well, this assignment is auditory, and I'm a kinesthetic learner. I mean, yeah, you gotta give me something I can touch. And he was like, and I just laughed. And you know what he said? He said, well, Lionel, didn't I tell you that you had all the styles? And so sometimes what we have to do is we have to develop those underdeveloped ones. And old Lionel was shut down right away. Okay? Well, yeah, he tried to get out of it. But I'm just suggesting, when they have the knowledge, they are empowered. And they are empowered not just in your class, but in everybody else's class they take. Okay? So that's an excellent strategy. I've seen that be very, very effective. We talked this morning more about critical thinking and teaching some critical thinking kinds of skills, problem solving. That's where we get into it. Collaboration and grouping gets us there better and stronger. And they do most of the work again. So another strategy that puts them, that's effective in having students interact with your content is Jigsaw. Now, for this activity, I'm going to need you to be seated in groups of 4. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to model this for you, and then we're going to talk about it. I need you in groups of 4. If you're a group of 3, somebody's going to do extra work. All right. Okay. What I'm going to do is you are now sitting in your home group. All right? These people sitting beside you are your home group colleagues. I'm going to give you some vocabulary words. These are very real. They're not made up. People spend a lot of money in therapy because of these. Okay, so everybody gets one sheet. Tear them apart. Everybody gets one sheet. And each of you will have just 4. Because you are college folks, so certainly you can master full vocabulary. Okay? These are phobias that actual human beings are in therapy for. So you can master. I've given you your vocabulary term and its definition. Now, you're sitting in your home group. What I'm going to ask you to do is to go and become experts. And you're going to help each other become experts. So those people who have vocabulary words 1, 2, 3, and 4, you come here. And you're going to help each other and teach each other those 4 vocabulary words. Those people who have 5, 6, 7, 8, you sit here. Okay? Those people who have 9, 10, 11, 12, you sit here. And those people who have 13, 14, 15, 16, sit here.
I'm 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay. Actually, I always used to usually shop in the dollar store because that's where I hang out. And there's always something that I find. So talk to me. What did you think about the process And where do you think it may be useful? As well as how well do you think you now know these phobias?
I know there are a lot more phobias than I thought.
I think it's useful because you get different people's viewpoints on how to understand the material. So we learn things that we didn't think about when we looked at the words. Yeah.
When you send people out to their expert groups, if you use this strategy, you might want to give them some ideas on how to teach each other. Like use mnemonics, or use illustrations, or use in your small groups. Now, because you were all professors, I didn't bother giving you any strategies. Figure you should have some strategies. But when you send your students in to become experts, give them some tools upon which they can use to become experts. They can use those same tools to come back and reteach the people in their home groups. Does this make sense? Okay, what else are you thinking? Think about some quick and easy strategies to get people to remember things.
But you're probably going to remember yours better than any others.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you strengthen that knowledge of the other material?
That's where those tools come in. You say, okay, when you use yours, I want you to use, when you, in your expert groups, I want you all to practice with each other on using mnemonics. And mnemonics is simply coming up with maybe even an acrostic poem about it. Or give them those kinds of short and quick, easy tools they can use to teach, to reteach. And what they're doing, what happens when you teach? You learn. You learn it even more solidly. And then you become an expert on your 4, and you're ready to go back now. And most of the time, students can't wait to get back to share their expertise. Because I saw some of y'all like ready to go back. So let me go while I still remember this, you know? I heard you. Yes.
Yeah, and also I see there's something called parallel processing. Okay?
Yes.
And so that means that we save time because you need to do some time to research for the like this.
Yes.
And then the other group spends the same amount of time in here, so it saves you that amount of time.
It's a huge time saving. Do you know how much time it would take me to try to teach y'all 16 vocabulary words and phobias? Do you really think I want to use my energy and that time that way? No. It's an efficient way of teaching. And who's doing the work again? And they can and they will, if they are interested, if you've got their attention and you give them the tools. Think about that. Give them the tools and watch them roll with it and go further than you would have anticipated. What else did you think about it? You were silent. What you have to say?
Well, I thought that in a lot of different places, especially when we were reviewing some of the strategies here, particularly in our group, it was really interesting trying to see how all of the different groups and their thought processes as they were trying to figure out how to explain it.
Right.
I was very, it was very interesting to see how each one, we had one person who was very hands-on and used numbers, we had another person who used word recognition, another person who gave scenarios, and then I gave visual images. And I thought, I'm writing all of that down as, I thought that was very good way.
But this is what your students will do when you use this strategy with them and give them the tools to use in that expert group.
Right.
And they come back in a much shorter time than it would have taken you to do it. They're doing that for,
Okay, so let's say I wanted my students to know certain vocabulary terms in psychology. I break them up into their groups and have them teach each other a portion of those vocabulary words.
Well, first you assign everybody in the group their own words they're responsible for. And keep it small. Keep it 2 or 3. I gave you all 4. And I gave you these 4 because I was pretty certain that most of you had never heard of these terms before, had never heard of these phobias. So I knew it would be new learning for you today. Now, some of you are going to have a hard time trying to forget it because some of you went into shock on some of these. Okay? But did you learn it? Was it surface learning, or did you actually have you really mastered? I guarantee you, most of you will remember most of these words tomorrow and next week because you did the work and you owned it. So when you use certain vocabulary words, give each student so many words and make them responsible for those words. And then you put them together with their other people who have those words. Give them the same and make them become experts on their own words.
And then have them take it.
Then the experts, they got those down.
Yeah.
They can't wait to get back and make everybody else an expert on their words too.
Yeah, okay, cool. I
Is,
like that.
is there a problem with blocking the learning because you're teaching? Like, I'm so excited to be teaching my 4 words that I'm not really listening to.
Well, people gonna make you slow down. And I heard that happen in the group here today. Like, wait.
I wasn't in the listening mode. I was in the, let me make you know this.
Yes, but because see, again, any skills that you want from your students have to be taught. In part of communication, a big part of literacy is listening, reading, writing, and most people just focus on reading. But it's reading, writing, listening, speaking, and thinking. And every single living, breathing one of you in this room should, in addition to your content, should be emphasizing literacy skills in everything you do. And listening is one that is often neglected. Teaching people how to listen is not often done. So your point is very well taken. You will have people sitting there not listening, just waiting, because you have those conversations with people. They don't hear what you have to say. They're just waiting for you to shut up so they can say what they want to say. Okay? How often does that happen? So in your classrooms, how much are you really teaching literacy skills, which includes listening, speaking, and thinking? How often do they get a chance to speak? They're going to talk anyway, whether you want them to or not. So why not design your content so that it takes advantage of their natural characteristics of what they're going to do anyhow? Give them opportunities to talk, but it's structured talk, focused talk on what you want them to talk about.
Like when you said talk to your elbow partner.
Mm-hmm.
Define that. So really, I could give them a certain amount of information and then talk to your elbow partner and tell each other what it is and have one of them.
Exactly. That's a version of think, pair, share.
It sure is, isn't it?
I mean, it's nothing new. It's how you use what you already know. Does this make sense? Okay. Everybody feeling comfortable with phobias? Okay. As I collect your phobia page, I'm going to give you your phobia quiz. Take the green sheet, give them back.
Wait, where's the camera?
Yeah. Okay. Who's the 4th person here? Somebody's missing. Oh, okay. All right. Give me sheet for sheet. Thank you.
My kids be saying, can't we work in pairs?
Well, actually, I'm just doing this because I could have said, okay, you're going to take this as a group, or you could take this in pairs. I'm just doing this because I can. Okay, it's 4. Okay, where are yours?
Oh, I gave them to.
Oh.
I passed them over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have them.
Thank you. Here you go. Has everybody got?
This group is proof of integrity.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because we are just simulating today, this is not really a test, of course. We're ready to check our answers. Okay. We could do the old-fashioned thing of exchange papers, or we can just hold on to them. It doesn't matter, because we're just playing today. All right? Are we ready? Now, we're going to see how you did individually and how well you taught your group. Okay. See, it said up there, it says a group grade. Okay. Now remember, see, this is what we do. Everybody is responsible for their own learning and mastery, but you're also responsible for the group. This is what a cooperative group does, remember? Okay. All right, are we ready for the first answer? Number 1.
Aye.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Yes.
Number 4.
A.
5.
B.
6. Number 6 is L. And then go to insist. Okay. Number 6 is L. Number 7.
D.
8.
K.
9.
C.
10.
B.
11.
N.
12.
J.
13.
O.
14.
G.
15.
L.
15 is E. And 16 is H. Okay, now calculate how well you did. And check to see how your colleagues did.
I wasn't a good teacher.
Okay. Let's debrief. Let's debrief.
Oh, no, I thought you were going to put your.
All right. How many people, how many groups, the entire group got 100? Got them all right.
The entire
The entire group. Okay. And beat them down. Okay, how many individuals got them all right? Okay, at every table, there's somebody who got them all right. Okay? But guess what? Everybody got most of them. Isn't that what it's all about? And guess who didn't do anything but wander around the room? We talk about engaging strategies. We're talking about thinking about things. I would guarantee that most of you do some version of Jigsaw in your classrooms. This is just a version of Jigsaw. It's called Jigsaw because each of you represent a part of the puzzle. We pull it apart, we put it back together, and it makes a stronger whole. And I, as the instructor, I do nothing or very little. You know where my work came in? In the planning and the looking up and the choosing of what it is you were going to learn today. That's where the real work for the professors, for the instructors, happen in the planning and the preparation. But once you step foot in that room, the bulk of your work is done. It's time for them to work. And you're going to have pushback and resistance from them like crazy because they're not used to it. They're used to sitting and getting. Okay? They're used to you doing all the work. And if we're talking about engaging them, you're going to basically change your culture in your classroom. But one step at a time, one piece at a time. This strategy is not for every content and every piece of the content. It's not even a match for every personality who's going to facilitate it. So you pick and you choose. Some of you will like Jigsaw and jigsaw them to death. And others of you are going to be a little leery about trying it. That's okay. You try something else. Now we're going to do another strategy that is highly engaging and it also facilitates greater literacy. reading, writing, listening, speaking, and thinking. It's also transferable across curriculum contents. It's called RAFT, which is an acronym. RAFT is an acronym for the role, the audience, the format, and the topic. RAFTs help people come outside of their own comfort zones to respond to your content. They want to own it. And they will own it, perhaps even ways that you can't even imagine, and you can't own it. Okay? RAFT stands for, the R is the role of the writer or the author or the speaker or the artist or historian. It's the role of the originator of the work. You actually put your head inside another person, animal, object, place. Okay? So, you've been sitting for quite a while. If you put your head inside your chair, what would your chair say to your butt right now? If it could talk, what would it say? What would your chair say? You don't have to say it out loud. But is that a crazy thought or what? Think about yourselves that we talked about this morning. Well, if your kids put their heads inside of any formula, any equation, what would they have to say? And in what format? That's the audience. Who would they say it to? Okay? So, if your chair wanted to communicate, your butt would be the audience, wouldn't it? Think about it. Your foot wants to talk to your shoe right now. The format, how is it going to communicate? Is it going to write a letter? Is it going to write a poem? Is it going to write a petition? Is it going to do a cartoon strip? Is it going to do a video? How is it going to communicate? How is the role going to communicate to this audience? And on what topic? Topic is very important. What's the topic? That's the focus that gets them to hone in on the concepts you want them to hone in on. All right? So, what I would suggest, I'm trying to remember, I'm not going to show that video in the interest of time. Here is an algebra raft. You have the coefficient speaking to the variable. You math people know what that means. And in the form of an email. Okay? Yeah. Whoa, that sounds like a rough love letter or something. But just think about that. And see, one of the cool things about RAFT is that format. Now, before you do, you don't give them any blanket choice to communicate in any format they want. You make the choice. You're the professor. You're in charge. You give them the choice of what format they're going to do until you get used to this idea. Then you can turn it loose and say they can communicate in any way you want. All right? You make the choice. Don't do too many. Because see, this is 5. This is a lot. When you first do a raft, if you choose to exercise this strategy, I recommend you don't do more than 3. Keep it small. Keep it under your control. You set this up, and then you let your students choose which of these 3 lines they're going to do. Or you can let them be a coefficient communicating to the students or communicate to the humans. in the form of a monologue or advice column or email. You can give them mix and match choices, but they got to stay within these parameters. Look at how many choices you got just with 3 lines. Does that make sense? Here is another one. This is an English one. Look at the different roles, the audiences. Here's an accountant one. I took many, many hours of accounting. Still hate it. I'm a creative accountant. You don't want me doing your books because we both go to jail. Okay? I like this one. This is an example of an algebra raft where the letter, natural numbers wrote a rejection letter to 0. You have it in your packet. I put it in as an example. This was done, I did a workshop I used to do a lot of work in Hawaii. And one of the teachers, a 10th grade teacher, did this and gave me permission to use it. I work all over, but I pick and choose. I only go places I like. I want to learn something. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But is that a cool letter or what? Now, is that literacy? Now, the kid has to present this to the class. Sometimes you have them work in groups, pairs. Here's one, a presidential raft, social studies. One of my colleagues did this. Yeah, he's talking to Michelle. We created another one right here, right? Okay. Here's another one. This is a music. See, it cuts across every content area. Now, here's a statistics raft. See, before you do any raft, you, as the instructor, must be absolutely clear why it's a good idea. Why is this a good strategy? This strategy isn't for every piece of your content area. It isn't for every teacher. But you must be exquisitely clear on what your students should know, understand, and be able to do as a result of them doing a piece of this raft. Because they only do a piece of it. And the way you put a raft together, when she does a piece, she does a piece, she does a piece, he does a piece, together they got the whole objective. But each of them only has a piece of the objective. Does this make sense? Sort of like the jigsaw. But they are going to interact with it, they're going to have fun with it, and most of all, they're going to learn and retain it. But here is the know, understand, and be able to do for statistics, the directions.
There's a physics, E equals to MC squared. There's a physics.
I know. That's the graphic, the only one I could find. So shoot me. He's right. But ignore the graphic. Look at the content. And then here's the actual raft itself. Okay?
So is this in our package as well?
Yes.
Okay, that is.
All of this is in the packet.
I'm gonna try it.
Okay. You're going to get to try it today. Okay? Here are some ideas that I included to give you ideas of things to think about. And this is a way to break it down, to look at how you are appealing to different ways that kids prefer to communicate. Does this make sense to you? So that you can hit the variety of ways that people prefer to learn. Now, here's your assignment. You get to choose. You're going to create a raft right now. Now, what I want you to do is not to do more than 4 lines. Do 3 or 4 lines with roles, audiences, formats, and topics. Think of something you have taught recently or want to teach or will be teaching. Or you can just do something just off the top of your head for fun. But whatever, and then you're going to pick 1 line. If you say that that the role is going to be a truck, the audience is going to be a driver, the format is going to be a text message, or the directions, or the map, then you're going to draw a map. Whatever you do in that 1 line in the format, that's what you're going to do. That's your product today. So let's get busy. If you want to do a letter, an email, a poem, a song, I would suggest that you work with someone else so you don't have to use your brain totally by yourself. So is this no, this is math and science table. I would work with somebody in my content area. Then it'd be useful. Is this table, this psychology, math, what are you?
Education. But,
okay.
We can do math as long as it's...
Okay, whatever. Or the 2 of you can go, and the 2 of you.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We can do a theme.
You can, whatever you want. It's open.
Like maybe a broad theme and different content areas. But, like sports.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a few minutes, which is going to include a break. If you need a break, take it now and come right back. See what we got, where we are right now. Some of you have banged it all the way out, and that's really cool. You had a chance. So, who wants to go first? Well, now, okay.
Well, I'll just do my line then. I did the role, for the role, John Dewey. The audience is Cornell West, and the format would be an email. And the topic is, what is the relevance of your influence?
Woo!
Dear Dewey, democracy and love is salient to considering the philosophical engagement and societal implications that are prevalent in the social institutional discourses, including
All right. Okay. Well, there's another interesting letter over here. You ready?
Yeah. I did this one. The role is function, and audience is graph, and then the format is email, and the topic is relationship and difference between us. And so I say, dear graph, people always relate me to you when they talk about me. Me means function. Okay? They construct a coordinate system and plot the points, and then connect them in a curve. But I want you to help me to show people that we are, although we are related, we are not the same. And some graphs are not functions, and some functions cannot be graphed. And sincerely yours, function.
Really good. Okay. Over here. Where are you going to go? Go ahead.
Okay, so Dr. Benjamin and I didn't get to the point of actually writing the letter.
Mm-hmm.
But the raft activity that we liked the most was the role would be cells, like cells in the body. The audience would be organs, so like, that are composed of cells and tissues. It will be a letter to HR, and it will discuss why you need us and how we can work together.
Okay. Oh, yeah. There's a whole lot you can even continue to extract out of there, like a job description.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
somebody.
Yeah, because essentially it's one big corporation.
Yes.
You need these individuals.
Somebody can write it. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay. What do you guys got over here? She was writing a song last time.
We did, the one with the song was the square was gonna write a song to the rectangle explaining what their common characteristics.
Okay.
And so, I don't sing, so the words go, I have 4 sides and you do too. I have 4 right angles and so do you.
Ooh, Al Green up in here. Let's work together. Okay.
And then we are both parallelograms and quadrilaterals too.
Oh. See, your students would sing that. And guess what? You think they wouldn't understand this? You think they wouldn't be interested in really totally head in it?
You can sing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You guys are seeing the value of this? What we got over here?
We have, okay, the role is the lunch director. Our audience is like 4th grade kids on tour group. The format is demonstration. We're doing like a Newton's third law.
Mm-hmm.
And then the topic is Newton's third law.
Mm-hmm. Well, the topic was also
For every
Action, there's an
action,
equal
there's an equal
Okay.
opposite reaction. And
Yeah.
so the demonstration was a balloon and showing that air comes in this direction. Force goes in
So theirs is in the form of a demonstration. But you know what you would also do to increase the literacy skills in that? You would have students write out step-by-step directions before they do the demonstration. See, you can include a lot of the literacies there. That's my job. Okay? Again, every content that you're teaching, you got some literacy in there. If you just back up, breathe, relax, and think about it. Reading, writing, listening, speaking, and thinking. How can I get them to do that? And you don't have to come up with it all by yourself. Keep talking to your colleagues. How about that table? What do you all have?
So we actually created writing assignments, that all align to the theme of football. So we use football as an overall theme. Our first assignment, the topic is the history of NFL, and it was an interview with a famous football historian, and the role would be history. We actually had roles that were aligned to our particular content areas, so we did a history-based writing assignment. Second was math-based, and this was the format was a statistical chart or graph using descriptive statistics, and the audience would be for coaches and for teams. And then the topic would be on who was the top performance of the previous year. And then the last assignment was a biopic, and this was related to psychology, the area of psychology. And this is where it was a biopic, and the topic was on cognitive delay in veteran players. And the audience would be medical professionals, coaches, and those interested in sports medicine.
Wow. You can break it all down and they can do, yeah. That was really cool.
To your heart.
Yeah.
I got you.
Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is rafting is a strategy that allows you to really promote the literacy strategies, to give kids some choice, give their students some choice in which activities they want to choose. Choosing nothing is not an option. Okay, remember that. They get to choose what they want to do, but they are focused where you want them to be focused. And you can use, there are several models, several examples in your packet. You can also go on YouTube and look up Raft and there are teachers on there talking about rafts and the impact that rafts have in their classrooms. Okay? Now, we got time for one last thing, which I'm going to also include the evaluation and a commitment from you for this session today. I don't know about you, I'm not feeling tired at all. I hope you are. Because I didn't do very much work. That was my agenda. So this one, I'm not going to go through the entire one. I'll just talk you through it. You see the clock face up behind me? When you talk about grouping your students, sometimes you want to, random grouping is okay and it's appropriate. But sometimes you want to do a more thorough job of knowing who you're putting in what group and why. Because there are some people who should never be together. Okay? Some people feed on their own negativity, each other's. And so, but when you allow them to have some choice, then you have all the rest of the choice. The clock just demonstrates that there are 12-hour times on the clock. So if I were to, when I'm teaching a course, oftentimes I will say, because I'm with graduate courses, I can do this. I give them 2 choices. With kids, I would never give them more than 2 they were younger. But with adults or semi-adults, I would give them 2 choices. I'd say, I want you to draw a line between, or do you have a line near 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 3 o'clock. I want you to get up and go around this room, find somebody you know and like, somebody you think is attractive, somebody you think is smart. You choose the criteria, but you're going to get to choose a 12 o'clock appointment and a 6 o'clock appointment. Just 2 people. And the way you do this is if you are my 12 o'clock appointment, I am automatically yours. Neither one of us can have 12 o'clock with anybody else. Does that make sense? So if you are my 6 o'clock appointment, I'm your 6 o'clock appointment. Neither one of us can be 6 o'clock with anybody else. So you get to find 2 people in this room, and you make a 12 o'clock appointment and a 6 o'clock appointment, and they have the same appointment with you, with each other. You can't have 6 o'clock with me and 6 o'clock with her. We got to be one or the other. Does that make sense? Now what you've done is you've given them 2 choices of people they want to work with in pairs. Okay? And then you can say, okay, for your 9 o'clock appointment, I want you to find 3 people, and all 3 of you will be mutual 9 o'clock appointments with each other. You can't be 9 o'clock with anybody else but those 3 people. You 3. So now what have you done? You've given them a choice of who they want to work with in triads. They got a choice. Yes. You put their 2 names on it. If these are your 2 9 o'clock, they can't be 9 o'clock with anybody else but you. They have to put your, yes. Okay? Now, you can do the same thing with 3 o'clock. You can say, okay, when I want you to work in groups of 4, I want you to go find 4 people you can stand. And all of y'all, sometimes, because guess what? A lot of people who should never be together, a lot of times they won't go there. Because they know that they're going to get in trouble. Okay? But those 4 people are at 3 o'clock. Now, what do you have as the instructor? You got all the other numbers on the clock on how you can group, mix, and match whenever you want. If you choose. Okay? So when you do that, you also tell them where you want them to sit. When you are in pairs, I want you to sit here, your pair. You teach them where you want them to sit. When you're in triads, I want you to sit where? Now, what does this do? You spend maybe half an hour to let them sign up and teach them where you want them to sit. That's your investment. They keep that in their note. From then on, whenever you want them in pairs and you want them to sit with their friends, okay, tomorrow or the next session, when you come in, sit with your pair. Sit with your 6 o'clock appointment, or sit with your 12 o'clock appointment, or sit with your 3 o'clock appointment. That gives them a heads up. It's an efficient way of grouping when it's random, when you give them choice. The rest of the time, you choose what groups they sit in and where they sit. Okay? Now, today, I'm not going to ask you to sign up, but what I'm going to ask you to do is this. I want you to choose a partner right now. Somebody who may or may not be sitting near you. Okay? Choose a partner very quickly. This isn't rocket science. Choose a partner and sit with that person right now.
Oh.
Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. I want you to look down and decide which of the two of you has the biggest foot. Okay. If you have the same size foot, decide who has the prettiest foot. Okay, now, all of you big feet people, raise your hands. Let's see who you are. Who's the big foot in the group? Okay, what about this pair? Okay, now, listen up. Can't be but one of you. So who's got the prettiest foot? Okay, all right, now listen up. I'm gonna give you a task to do, and I'm gonna time you. Bigfoot people, you're gonna do some talking and thinking. I want you to think through what you gained. Woo. I shouldn't have been fooling with this PowerPoint last night. I messed it up. It says, what you gained from today. Either new learning or validation of something that you already were doing, or how students benefit through engagement with the grouping, or the pre-assessment, project-based, something we talked about today. Big feet people, I want you to talk to little feet and tell them what you gained from today. Now, you're going to have 75 seconds. That's it. When I say start, you start. When I say stop, you stop. Okay? Ready? Go. Okay, stop. Little feet, it wasn't your turn to talk. Okay. Now, little feet, it's your turn to talk. Big feet, you be quiet. You don't have to say anything. In fact, you don't have to do anything else today. Okay. All right? Nobody, it's not my fault you're born with a little foot. So, here we go. Listen up. Little feet, you are now going to paraphrase what Bigfoot had to say and add your own, what you think they should have said, but you are only going to get 45 seconds. Okay? Ready? Go. Stop. Okay. Stop. All right, now, what I need you to do is this. I need you to find another, like these four together. 4 together over here, and 4 more together. You're now going to be in quads. Just turn your chair around. Big feet don't have to do anything. Now listen up. In these quads, little feet, I'm going to give little feet just a few minutes, like maybe 2 to 3 minutes, not more. Little feet, I want you to share out the important things that was discussed when you were sitting with Bigfoot by yourself. Is everybody ready? Okay, go. Little feet talking only. Big feet, if you want to, you can chime in, but you don't have to. Okay, let's go. This was just a quick and easy way to bring about summary, to bring about checking for understanding. How many ways can you use a strategy like this? You can pre-assess, access background knowledge, prior knowledge. What happened in here to this, just with this little strategy? You all got so distracted with the foot thing. You didn't even realize who did all the work? Did I do anything? I just watched the clock. And I listen in. But again, who does all the work? Who did all the learning? You could have chosen anything. I chose feet. You could have chose, bless you. You could have chose who has earrings, who has the longest hair. You know, you could choose anything. It doesn't matter. People get so distracted with what you choose that they don't realize that they're doing the work. You didn't even pay attention. Y'all were like, what? Who's got it? And you argued over feet the whole time too. Which was funny. Yeah. Yeah. But there are, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many ways. I wanted you to at least have some summary or some sense of thinking through before you leave. When you leave, you can process even deeper. What happened in there today? I ain't see anybody falling asleep. I ain't see anybody not working. Everybody was on task. And you weren't just involved. You were engaged. So I want to thank you for your time and your attention. I had fun today, and I learned some new nuggets. Okay? Okay. And we're done.